Okay, hello HWC. It is Friday, the 2nd of May, and it is our May HWC Acting Monthly Challenge. Today we are doing an Aaron Sorkin scene from the newsreader. If you did your research correctly, you would have found that this was based on an actual interview back in the day. We've got coaches coming in and out today, so we will introduce them as they come in. Let's get started. We'll just go straight into it. Lauren Patrice Nadler, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Lauren Patrice Nadler, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm having a lot of technical difficulties, and I had a dental surgery yesterday, bone grafted. So if I'm not clear, because my upper lip is really swollen. Um,
Oh,
so I'm in Los Angeles. I started out in New York. I'm international on Zoom as well. I teach scene study and improvisation, but with the ultimate goal of making you fabulous actors. What I've done has worked for many, many people who have lots and lots of success stories to tell. Currently, I have currently one of my students is in the number one, is the star in the number one film on Netflix, The Life List, and one of them just completed, I think, 4 episodes airing of The Righteous Gemstones. I can never remember the name of that show. And there's and coming up in Karate Kid is my student Aramis Knight, who at 15 we worked on a part for a show called Into the Badlands. It lasted 3 seasons. He was a 15-year-old kid who got 3 seasons as the lead in the show, and now it's a martial arts show with fabulous acting. And to kind of tap into what Ivy was asking, he went on the audition. He went on the audition in person. We coached for it, and they went on a worldwide search for a martial artist. He wasn't a martial artist, and but they auditioned him, and 6 months later they came back to him and gave him a call back 6 months later and gave him the call back, and he booked the job. But that doesn't always happen. I mean, it also happens at a level of professionalism. If it's a small audition, let it go. I have so many students who never hear on certain things, and generally it's either because it went away, they lost their funding, something didn't happen. One person got called back, like Wendy was saying, for a part where she was a drug addict. They didn't hire her because they wanted to hire the real thing. And then when she dropped out at the last minute, go figure, they came back to my friend and my student and offered her a job. So it's an endless amount of times that happens. I'm currently involved with actually one of my students who started out as an actor and also wanting to produce, and he's also a lawyer, and he has a lot of projects. He's a writer, but he wanted to live up to the writing, so he took acting class. He's been with me now 4 or 5 years, and I'm directing his projects now. I've done the second one last weekend. We finished it, and it's a deck for pilots that are going to go out beyond that. I started out in New York City acting, and then I ended up casting Adrian Brody in his very first lead role, and then in his second lead role. I'm not his teacher, but he taught me a lot of the principles of focus and concentration and courage in our work together. And what else? There's always more to say, but I'm actively teaching. I really believe in what the principles of what I teach, and all that I do is I'm working at getting the truth out of you guys, the truth in a believable, compelling, exciting way. That's my work. Thank you.
thanks, Lauren. We have Lisa London, who's just popped in, casting director. Lisa, can you do a quick intro for us, please?
Hello. Hi, Sean.
Hi.
Hi, Lauren. Hey, guys. Yes, so I'm a casting director. I've been a casting director for a super long time, and I cast like lots of shows for decades and movies. And I also teach class. I teach classes online. So if you guys are out of state, I teach them online. And I also teach an in-person class that I have in North Hollywood starting next week for a month. So That's my short intro for the moment. That's so I didn't sell myself probably great, but that's me.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Alex Collins has also joined us today.
What's
Alex,
up,
can you do
everybody?
your
I'm
intro?
Alex. Yeah, hey, I am a 25-year professional actor. I've served in the Atlanta SAG-AFTRA board. I've spent a decade in Los Angeles working, over a decade in the Southeastern market. I have students all over the world, from co-stars to series regulars, including a lot of TMFA and HWC actors. You've probably seen me on the posters for the Hood Summit, which will be my 4th year. I see some familiar faces. Hi, Reagan. Hi, Gina. Um, Normally, I'm not available on Fridays. I'm usually busy teaching on Fridays, but I saw today was Sorkin, and I teach an entire class just on Sorkin. I've had multiple friends be series regulars on multiple Sorkin um, shows, and my friend is in the scene. He's one of the actors in the scene that you're doing today. So I have a lot of tips and tricks that apply to Sorkin especially, and if you can master them for Sorkin in a believable and organic way, as Lauren says, that's the key fundamental thing, being truthful. If you can master it in this, you can master it in any genre, any size role. So looking forward to sharing a couple nuggets before I have to disappear.
Yeah, so what's going to happen, guys? So right now we've got Lauren, Lisa, and Alex. We're going to rotate through them for the tapes while they're here, while other coaches come in. At the end of today's session, I will show you guys the scene just so you guys can see the final scene as well. But we will prioritize all the tapes that have come through. Jacob Flaherty is coming in. So we'll do his intro, and then Alex will give you guys a little mini crash course into Sorkin, so then you can keep these notes in mind as we watch the tapes, and you listen to everyone's feedback as well. So before we go back to Alex, Jake, can you please do a quick intro to everyone who may not know you?
Sure, nothing like getting caught off guard. Okay, hey everybody, how are you? Well, I look worse than I thought I did. Okay, that's even possible. Welcome to Friday mornings in LA. I am Jake O'Flaherty, and I am. You want the whole rigmarole? We'll do a condensed version in 30
Yeah,
seconds.
just a condensed version.
I
Yeah.
work as an associate and assistant at Mary Dangerfield, a Dangerfield talent here in Los Angeles, which in the LA market is commercial only. So we are a SAG franchised agency. So we deal with commercials and music video, public service announcement, corporate industrial videos, print, things like that in that market. And I've worked with Mary 11 years, and it's been pretty great. You learn a lot about the other side of the business, that's for sure. And you're dealing with a lot of other agents and managers and casting and production. And uh, the synergy's great, when things are working well, and you have to have each other's backs on the other side, and everybody's trying to help everybody out while we're also trying to support the actors to make some money and have some fun and work another part of the business. And I really enjoyed it. I've been an actor and a member of Screen Actors Guild since 1995. This is my 30th year, and it's exciting to accomplish 30, and at the same time it's a little daunting because LA has been very challenging over the last year and a half, work-wise. Commercials do not seem to be affected as much in the LA market. So that part is good. Unfortunately, we are dealing with about 70% of the breakdowns as non-union now for about that same amount of time, about 18 months now, consistently 70% non-union, 30% union. So that's been a big challenge, but we'll get through it. We'll figure it out like we do with everything else. Um, I'm not here to post a class or anything, so I'll just move forward. But yes, I have coached a bunch of actors over the years. Lucky some of them turned out to be huge celebrities, and other people decided to retire from acting after a decade. And that's the way it goes. I work with a lot of different people in different points of their career. I like to keep busy, if I wrote a play right before COVID hit, and we were doing pretty well for 6 weeks, and then boom, there's no more theater. So what am I gonna do, right? You move on, you keep pivoting, And that's what I do. So I'm here to help Sean, because who doesn't love Sean? I mean, for God's sake, he's like one of the nicest people ever alive. And oh, look at this. I'm seeing Alex and Lisa London here. So I'll shut up because these guys are way more important than me and all that kind of stuff. So hi everybody. How are you?
Thanks, Jake. Okay, so we're gonna head over to Alex, and he's gonna give us a little bit of a Sorkin overview for what you guys should be looking out for, especially for this scene.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Thanks for having me. And Jake and Lisa and Lauren, nice to see your faces as well. And of course, lovely Sean. So just a quick 2-minute overview, gang. Aaron Sorkin began as a playwright. And due to that, he tends to be a little bit wordier than your typical TV or film screenwriter. His debut film, A Few Good Men, a lot of y'all know that, Jack Nicholson, You Can't Handle the Truth. That was originally a play and an award-winning play that then got optioned into a script. Sorkin, in my opinion, is the closest you'll get to working in theater while working on camera. And here are some of your must knows for Sorkin. And Sean even outlined them when assigning this assignment. You must be word perfect. There's no room for paraphrasing, not even one word. The fun fact is Aaron Sorkin is also the showrunner for most of the TV shows that he has ever produced. 7 seasons of The West Wing, he was the showrunner for the first 4 seasons. The Newsroom that we're doing today, he was the showrunner for all 3 seasons. Okay, you must pay extremely close attention to punctuation. Everything is written for a reason on his projects. And he rewrites scenes up to the moment of shooting the scene. So if you're not 100% comfortable with the material that you've been given, when you're handed rewrites, you'll flounder. So it's really important to know that text inside and out, know the cue lines from the other characters inside and out. Pace, stakes, and urgency are at the heart of every single environment in the universes that Aaron Sorkin creates. The West Wing, that's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job inside the White House. Newsroom is cable news. It's 24/7. Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip was an SNL-style show. They're working 24/7 as well. Defending soldiers accused of murder is incredibly high stakes. That's around-the-clock work for those lawyers in A Few Good Men. You guys get the idea, right? The other thing to really look at in Sorkin scripts is you must earn the beat. There's so much dialogue packed into so few pages. Sorkin writes beats for a reason. You don't take a beat willy-nilly unless it's written, unless it's earned. And if it is there, take the beat, okay? The walk and talk, that's something that's also very common in Sorkin's work, predominantly The West Wing. That was the first show to introduce that. That's why it's so difficult to actually binge watch. It was designed for the audience to catch their breath during commercial breaks so they could emotionally reset. It's stressful, high stakes. One last note, talking about pacing. It's not just about being fast, it's about being adept at language. To give you an idea of how much dialogue is packed into a project, we've all heard the time comparisons, right? 1 page of script is a close approximation to 1 minute of dialogue. And as we get streaming and cable, that's starting to morph away from that. And single cam is a little bit different than multicam. But we know that your typical network television show, 1 hour drama, is between 42 and 44 minutes when you get rid of credits and commercials. And so we're looking at scripts that are going to be around 45, maybe 50 pages if it's a 1 hour drama. The West Wing pilot, 70 pages. Not 45, 70. Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, 72 pages. The Newsroom pilot, the show that we're working on today, 86 pages. Okay, so you really have to cram a lot of text into the same or very similar time constraints. HBO, that Newsroom is on, is a little bit different because some of their episodes ran 55 minutes or 61 minutes, but it's pretty close. And the same thing is true for Sorkin's films, right? If we kind of use that 1 page per minute scenario, most films are going to come in 2.5 hours, so 120 to 150 pages. A Few Good Men is 174 pages, but it's only 2 hours and 18 minutes long as a film. Social Network is 163 pages, but it actually comes in at 2 hours and 1 minute. That's how much pace really kicks into it. And that's not just being fast. That's not blowing through it. That's really understanding your occupation, knowing your job as one of the characters, whether it's in cable news or inside the Oval Office in the president's business dealings, right? So there's a lot of really cool stuff there. I'm going to put a link into the chat, which includes an example of pace, an example of walk and talk, but it's from the director of photography's point of view on the West Wing. Watch this after class today, y'all. Just copy and paste it and save it for later. It's about a 13-minute interview with what an endurance sport it is to be on the camera department of an Aaron Sorkin show. So I'll put that into the link for you. That's it. I'm done. Thanks for listening.
I have a question. Am I allowed? I want to, Alex, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Say, just curiosity. So as an actor, you get an audition for something for Sorkin. Say it is a scene that's like a walk and talk scene and you're doing a self-tape.
Yes.
I know you're not going to walk and talk through the whole thing, but do you like walk into it? Do you walk out of it? What would you advise actors to do in a situation where it's a walk and talk scene like that?
It's a great question, and it's contingent on what the material is specifically. What is the reason for their walking? Where are they coming from, and where are they going? So newsroom, for example, is 24/7 breaking news. You need to be the first network to break this news, because if you're not first, you're last, right? And so, especially if it's live, if Will McAvoy is live on TV and you're getting a source, you're getting confirmation from a source, and you need to vet that source, double confirm it, hand it off to the producer so they can get it into the graphics bay, and then hand it off to Will so he can actually look at it, and then it's up on the teleprompter, boom, boom, boom. So it's the urgency. What are the stakes involved in the scene, and how urgent does that make you? You might not be able to stop to have a casual conversation with one of your colleagues. So I may be walking in to the scene. I don't like to come in from the side. I don't like to give blank space on my frame, but I could be farther back in my frame and come down and land and say, Lisa, we just got the confirmation from the Exxon Valdez about the 120,000 gallons in the last hour. We're going to run with that as soon as we get to the next commercial break. That sort of thing. So I might come in until I'm stopped by my scene partner. And then at the end of the scene, look, we can pick this up later. I have to go and get this to Will right now. And then I may choose to exit. Oh, sorry about that. Let me double check that link for everybody, and I'll get it back to you.
Thanks, Alex.
You're so welcome, Lisa. Nice to see your face.
You too.
Okay, so let's get started. I'm dealing with some microphone issues at the moment. So first person we're watching is Steve and Vega. Lauren and Alex, I will get you guys to coach this one, please. Going to share my sound and my screen. Okay, can everyone see that? Okay. And also, coaches, I've put the sides in the chat for you should you need it.
Can you talk about the vetting process the citizen journalism undergoes?
The vetting?
People can post more than locations. They can post observations.
That's right.
I'm asking, are those posts fact-checked? For instance, in a post today, a citizen journalist tells us that Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood.
That's right.
Jimmy Kimmel was with his family in Cabo San Lucas last night.
People don't read this with the expectation of it being true.
Excuse me? People don't have an expectation of what they're reading is true?
They read it for the immediacy.
But you're using the word journalism, which means there is an expectation of what they're reading is true, but I'll take it a step further. Let's pretend it was true, that Jimmy Kimmel was intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood. It's not, but we don't care. So let's pretend that it is, since that's what we're doing anyway. So why does it belong on our website?
Well, honestly, I think there's a shifting definition of what's public and private space.
There is, and we should care about that. My question is, why should we care about a talk show host drinking at a bar?
Don't you think it's great that we're not putting people up on a pedestal and worshiping them anymore?
I don't think celebrities are one of the bigger challenges facing us, but aren't we the ones building the pedestal? You've got a map that gives us their location.
The idea is that we're acknowledging that they're real people.
I wonder how many of us didn't already know that. But you're doing more than acknowledging they're real people. You're beating them up for it.
Aren't they protected by the piles of money they're surrounded by?
Okay, so what's the line of demarcation? You make over X amount of dollars a year and now you get to be treated by us as a regular person who's basically had an electronic bracelet slapped on their ankle? What does X equal?
It would be silly to name an exact dollar amount.
You're paid $55,000 a year.
Well, that's private.
Sorry, that's almost twice the national average for a family of 4. Do your piles of cash protect you from this interview, in which I'm intentionally stripping you of your dignity? And by the way, I managed to do it without lying once. So I'll give you another chance to answer my question before I answer it myself. What's the value of an unsourced, unvetted story about a grown man drinking at a bar? Can't give you all the time in the world. It's entertainment. My concern isn't for celebrities, even though it sure as we're sitting here someone's going to get hurt. My concern is for the rest of us, which you're turning into a wild pack of prideless punks. That's News Night for June 24th. I'm Sloan Sabbath filling in for Will McAvoy.
Okay, over to you, Lauren and Alex. Either of you want to go first? Lauren?
Hey, I'm looking for you on the screen.
Here, I'm here. I'll talk so that I can pop up. Did that help?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good,
So
thank you.
what I saw coming out of the gate is like the first couple of sentences. First of all, you didn't land them. There was no actual request or a strength of the opinion. You're doing a television interview and you're interviewing the guy. It's not like you're hiring him for a job. So you obviously have an opinion, but I think it's your show. And so there has to be more operating than just saying the words in the beginning. I saw a few places, like when you said, excuse me, and then later there was this smile, that where I saw them, those moments came through very spontaneously and organically, which tells me that you have an opinion, but I feel like throughout this whole thing, you were just posturing. You were posing and just kind of spitting out the information and not giving him real cause to fight for what he believed in, or to even, I mean, it's a little passive aggressive in the beginning where you're kind of leading into saying to him, I don't approve of what you're offering. I think it's ridiculous. And it's so funny because it's so indicative of what's going on today with everything. I mean, like this was so ahead of its time in terms of Sorkin writing characters that were willing to put themselves out there to do false journalism. And so this woman is outing you and it's a surprise. So there needed to be more red on your face where you have to allow what she's saying to you to sort of hit you. And I just didn't see that in most of it. And like, just when I thought it was like, you're not offering your opinion. An opinion isn't a verbal opinion. It's an opinion in what you're saying, in how you're speaking to somebody, that your opinion comes through. It's literally the most important thing that an actor could possess within the work. We have them in life and people think it's a negative thing, and it's not. I say to people, have your opinions, but there's different ways to express them. If you read the conversation prior, which I'm assuming that most people will have read the conversation. I mean, there's a whole page of FYI in the beginning of it, which really leads you into this thing. And you're introducing you just moved. Where are you?
I'm here. I'm here.
So you're introducing the person to the news. What I liked is at the end, you turned to the camera and actually said you signed off. So that was showing a moment of variance. So I think that at the end of the day, I have to confirm my language, English. What's happening on Zoom? So in kicking this off, there just needs to be a level of like, what are you trying to accomplish? And then try to identify for you a personal time where something that you were saying, I always say acting is not lying, it's telling the truth with different words. Find the different words that make this make sense to you it's easier said than done. It's a little bit like, you know, patting your stomach and patting your head and rubbing your stomach, but it needs to be more personal. You need to be personally invested in having this conversation. And like I said, when you said, excuse me, it like kicked in all at once, and then it kind of left the building again. I felt like, were you reading a lot of this? Because you were kind of word perfect in a lot of it. Were you
I
reading?
was completely off book, 100%.
For you, but don't do that at the sacrifice of having a personal connection to it.
Got it.
It needs to have more ebb and tide, more flow, more movement, changes. Your body needs to get involved in something when you're, you know, enforcing a strong opinion. So a little more of those spontaneous moments of actual connection.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Awesome. Hey, Stephen.
Hey,
So I'm
Alex.
going to talk about a couple of things from the script analysis standpoint from that. Number one, this conversation is actually mid-conversation in this scene. It's not the beginning of the conversation. The conversation's already been happening. So that's really important. We need to get that sense of familiarity, that we're not starting from square one, that we're starting from square four, so to speak. Number two, this is live TV. And it's in your house. No, it's not your show, but it's your network, and you're very comfortable. You do live TV every day. So there shouldn't be any sense of stiffness or nervousness. Here's where the relationship that comes into play is very interesting. You both consider yourself journalists, but the reality is you are a legitimate journalist. That person is a blogger. So there's a sense of that person has an entitlement to put them on equal footing with you. You must have a point of view of how you feel about that. Somebody equating your years, your blood, sweat, and tears, your hard work, and equating it with what they do. Now, here's the extra wrinkle that works for that, that can be a challenge for that. You both work for the same company. This blogger actually works for the same network that you do. So this person is willingly coming on the show thinking they're talking about something when you're actually setting up to take them down. And we can't see that result at the top of the scene. We only see this uncover and unfurl throughout the scene. It's your intention all along to bring this guy Bree down a peg, okay? Let's talk about word perfect. You were pretty close. You were like 96%, 95%, but there were several articles, ifs, thes, days, ands that were different. And that's enough to get you a little walkover from Aaron Sorkin and the script supervisor to get you a little slap on the wrist. It changes the rhythm and the melody of the intent in some places. Overall, the pace is pretty good. Let's go to the last page of the scene. This is really the opportunity where you get to kick ass and take names because you know that you've been setting this person up, okay? And so once it turns to money and you've posed the question, okay, what's the line of demarcation? You make over X dollars a year and now you get to be treated as a regular person? Yada, yada, yada. You are putting the bait on the hook, trying to catch this person now, and you've got him on the hook. So that last monologue that you have must be rocket fuel. You must be going full cylinders blazing up until the then. Because at the then, this other person is now backed into the corner with no fight left in them. So you give them one beat to catch their breath, and then you go on and keep punching them with the second half of that monologue. I can't give you all the time in the world. It's entertainment, right? Didn't they just say that what he was doing was entertainment? You're using their words against them. And then you build to the end, the crescendo of that. Then you turn to the camera. That's Newsnight for June 24th. I'm Sloan Sabbath filling in for Will McAvoy. And you can show it all over your face whether or not you think you were victorious in that particular fight. The audience will make the decision. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
Good.
You know,
I have definitely enough. I can go back and redo it with all you got with both your notes.
Can I just say, I don't really, I was just doing, like, I feel like my brain was in both of the characters. So I'm not even sure whether I gave notes from one point of view or the other.
You gave it from both, but I understood what you meant.
Yeah, I mean, in general, just to have the flow, but it's so helpful, Alex. It's so wonderful to have somebody who's, I'm a fan of Sorkin and also being word perfect 100%. I wasn't reading the whole time. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
Good. Thank you. Thank you both. I definitely have enough to go back and redo it.
Brilliant. Love it. Okay, before we move on to the next actor, that's going to be Paige. We've got Andy Matheny and Amber Boak here. Andy, can we start with your intro, please?
Yes, you can, Sean. This is Sean Perez signing off.
Signing off HWC.
Turning it over to Andy Matheny. Very appropriate for the material today. So hi, everybody. It looks like we have more coaches than perhaps actors today, which is interesting. So congratulations to everybody here who put something down on tape, because this was heavy lifting. I mean, I saw the script and I'm like, this is the kind of script that I live for. This is, Aaron Sorkin. He's, one of the great writers of, our generation, and writes amazing stuff. So those of you who took the challenge, good for you. Okay, back to me. I've been a working actor for several years now. You can look me up on IMDb to see who I've worked with, the projects that I've done. I did a movie a couple years ago with Kelsey Grammer. It's probably streaming somewhere. I have several students. We've had a really interesting, kind of cool year where people who've been studying with me for a long time are suddenly kind of like blossoming and booking. I've had a student just book on Law and Order. I had a student, two students book recurring roles on Tulsa King. Had a student book a recurring guest star on Righteous Gemstones, and her episodes have been airing now for the last couple of weeks. And I have a couple of students who just booked a new series filming in Florida called Mia. So it's kind of like, it just goes to show that you put the time in, and eventually if you put the time in, something will happen. That's my belief. And it's my belief, I've witnessed it in my own career, and I've witnessed it as an acting coach too. I have several different types of classes that I offer. My cornerstone class is Act Alive, where, in these sessions, we talk a lot about what to do. Like, you need to be personal and you need to be connected. My Act Alive classes specifically show you exactly how to get connected, how to use yourself, how to personalize, how to get your gut connected to script. So that's what I love to do. I'll post all of that on the chat thing and stuff. And by the way, it seems like we're going to get through everybody's scenes, but in case we don't, you are welcome to send your scenes, your link to me, and I will be happy to give you feedback. In fact, I prefer that, because in that way I can watch your scenes a couple of times and really take the time to dig in, and give you detailed notes. So great to see everybody.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, Amber.
Hello, everybody. I have such exciting news for myself, and I guess for you guys, but literally like 10 minutes ago, I found out my boyfriend is more than likely getting this job, and after this, I'm going to drive to Raleigh and maybe buy a house, and it's a crazy day, so that's why I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be here or not, and all that, and just a shout out to just the amazing coaches here. I texted Sean, I was like, hey, I'm running late. And he was like, oh, no worries. Like, Alex is giving a chat. And I was like, I need to be there to hear this chat. Like, I want to be here for this. So I was so excited, Alex, when you said that and you were going to come in, because I respect you so much. And last month, I don't know if I had anything to do with this, but I had said, like, if it's Sorkin, you have to be word perfect. And then this month, Sean ticked Sorkin, and I was like, oh, okay, this is exciting. I must make it happen. So that's my life update. Update for you guys is our fundamental class sold out, that started last night. Coach Kimberly, my business partner, teaches it. She's a working actor, member of the Academy. She just actually booked a film as well and is going to be filming next weekend. So we were able to add a class. It fits in her schedule. I'm putting the info in the chat. You can get 50% off it. It starts tonight. Don't sign up if you're not going to be there all 4 weeks. If you can be there all 4 weeks, and you can't afford it, message me right now at the end of the session today before I leave. I'll give a spot for free. I'm saving a spot in it for you guys. Other news for me, I own Actor Site. I think most of you know that by now. Co-own it with Kimberly. Audition technique is our big thing, but I also audition coach all the time. I have people that are working regularly. If you guys were here a month or two ago, I had 2 people that tested for a pilot. They did not get it, but the pilot did not get picked up. As of 2 days ago, one of my students just got another test deal for a different pilot that's filming in the Southeast. So that's exciting. And I love working with actors. I'm an actor myself, but I keep having injuries that keep stopping me from doing any acting. And I just found out I might have to get another foot surgery. So I'm not doing anything for like 7 months other than working with you guys and maybe buying a house. So sign up for class if you want to hang.
Wow. Congratulations, Amber.
Thank you. Crazy week.
Wow. Okay, so we're going to be watching Paige's tape, and Lisa and Jake, you're going to be coaching for her. Let me share this.
Talk about the vetting process the citizen journalism undergoes.
The vetting?
People can post more than locations. They can post observations.
That's right.
I'm asking if those posts are fact-checked.
This is one specific element of the
For
site.
instance, in a post today, a citizen journalist tells us that Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood.
That's right.
Jimmy Kimmel was with his family in Cabo San Lucas last night.
People don't read this with the expectation of it being true.
Excuse me?
Everyone reads it for
People
the...
don't have an expectation that what they're reading is true?
They read it for the immediacy.
But you're using the word journalism, which means there's an expectation that what they're reading is true. Let me take it a step further. Let's pretend it was true that Jimmy Kimmel was intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood. It's not true, but we don't care. So let's pretend that it is, since that's what we're doing anyway. Why does that belong on our website?
Honestly, I think there's a shifting definition of what's public and private space.
There is, and we should care about that. But my question is, why should we care about a talk show host drinking at a bar?
Don't you think it's great that we're not putting people up on a pedestal and worshiping them anymore?
I don't think celebrities are one of the bigger problems facing us. But aren't we the ones building the pedestal?
The idea...
that gives us their location.
The idea is that we're acknowledging that they're real
I
people.
wonder how many of us didn't already know that. But you're doing more than acknowledging they're real people. You're beating them up for it.
Aren't they protected by the thousands of piles of money they're surrounded by?
Okay, what's the line of demarcation? You make over X dollars a year and now you get to be treated by us as a regular person who's basically had an electronic bracelet slapped on their ankle. What does X equal?
Well, that would be silly to name an exact dollar amount.
$5,000 a year?
Well, that's private.
Okay. Lisa, do you want to go first with this one?
Sure. Where is Paige? Oh, there she is. Hi, Paige. Okay, good. So my thoughts off the bat are, what I would say is, did you have a clear idea in your mind of who this girl was? That's my first question for you. Did you like really get that what she was doing here in this scene and what you were trying to do?
I thought I was just trying to, in a way, promote the website and show that like it is supposed to be a good thing. And then when she was like attacking me, I was like, oh gosh, like this is supposed to, like, I don't want to be being attacked on live television. So trying to remain professional.
Yeah. And I got it. And it's one of the things that I thought as I was watching it is like, you know, part of it, a big part of this, your part of the scene is your reactions and how you're reacting to what Sloan is saying. So it's like, and they're putting you down and kind of giving you these digs and stuff like that. So I would have liked to see more of that, like more of your reaction, especially in that big speech about Jimmy Kimmel when they say that whole thing, it wasn't true and all that. You are now busted. So how are you going to react? You're trying to stay calm about it. Yeah. But I would have liked to see more about how you really felt and what your point of view about it was through this scene. You know, this person is challenging you. So I felt like that for me wasn't enough. I didn't get that. You know, this is it's really important as actors. You got to listen, especially when the other guy has the big speech, you know, so you got to really make sure, how are you reacting and how would you react to this if this was happening to you in real life? So that was what I was thinking about. I felt a lot of it was the same, and it didn't have enough of the layers or the levels in it. And what was your, even though you're trying to stay calm about it, you're still trying, because it's on live television, but you also, you could be maybe a little bit tougher. I mean, you know what I mean? You could challenge that, you know, Sloan back more, whatever. You don't have to be like, okay, I'm so meek or whatever. And that's what came across for me. And I would have liked to see more of the, maybe you challenge back a little bit more and be a little bit stronger.
Okay.
Your reactions, I would have wanted to see more.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Over to you, Jake.
Well, who wants to follow Lisa London? I mean, come on.
Jake, stop.
I mean, have you read her book?
You're so
Come
kind.
on. I don't have a book.
Jake.
And you know, I'll be honest, I still have a little PTSD from my experience with West Wing. That's how I met this amazing actor named Evan Arnold that Lisa probably knows who he is, and he got the part. It wound up, it was like it was a recurring role, 3 or 4 episodes for West Wing, and it was down to Evan Arnold and I remember like sitting outside this little hallway in this casting building and going back and forth and in and Evan, I'm like, so where are you from? And trying to get rid of nervous energy out there. All right. So I think that, you know, I'm not going to repeat a lot of what Lisa said because it's pretty significant in their page. But first of all, congratulations to you, because I know as an actor how hard these type of materials can be. And, you know, our job in all of these things are trying to find these small transitions, you know, and sometimes we can't physically move too much. So we have to find these transitions with the tone of our voice, right? But the magic is, I think, sometimes in finding it, right? And there's not a lot of transitions in here for me with your tone of voice, right? So like Lisa said, there's a lot going on here. You're being challenged, you're being busted. I think she said you're being discarded at times. There has to be more than the reaction with your eyes. I think the subsequent response of the dialogue will also strongly indicate that transition of emotion that you're having based on the fact that you were busted or discarded or challenged or, you know, talked down to as a woman or whatever the situation may be. It feels too slow in the beginning to start for me. I believe Alex in the last one mentioned it. You can tell from the sides that this is a conversation that's in the middle of happening. So there is some sort of stakes are higher from the first line, tone's a little strong. It's in the middle of the conversation. It's like the camera panned over, you're at the bar, you're 2 drinks in, blah, 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 and all this is going on, right? So it kind of grabs us like, wait, what? I think it should have a little bit more of that feel to it in there. For me, I'm a guy who likes to work with words. So when I heard you say the word honestly, what I didn't hear and see was a shift of the fact that people say words like honestly when they're right about to be dishonest. I find that interesting in life in general, and I find it very interesting that that type of real life conversation is often copied in screenwriting and from playwrights. And it's an indicator to the audience that what is about to be received is the opposite of what they're saying, right? So it says something about the character, but also about that scene in there for me. Okay. So as soon as I hear you say honestly, I think the stakes need that immediately 2, 3 sentences after, the stakes needed to be implied that they are now higher. Okay. And with that tone for me. Does that help? This is another little thing I have. The eyes are the window to the soul, right? So when I'm watching you, I'm watching your eyes. The facial expressions for me kind of support the eyes. But I learned this years ago when I worked as a free casting assistant to Meg Lieberman and Mark Hirschfeld, I believe. It was in the days when it was at 411 on Wilshire Boulevard in this big building. And I would sit there quietly in the corner And she kept saying the eyes are the window to the soul. Do you believe them when you're saying? And I didn't see a registration in your eyes after the whole honestly section in there that, maybe I've accomplished deception. Or, well, what do you think about that, Mr. So-and-so with all the information who thinks he's the greatest thing that ever lived and God's gift to women? Well, you're not. That kind of scenario, I want to see that in your eyes. It's like a ticker tape. Okay, then, right? These are little subtle nuances that we learn to play with as actors, and they can make it more interesting and fun because I know in my mind 50 other actors have the same dialogue with the same information. So I want to incorporate little tiny things that maybe are indicative of me and my personality, and I want to make sure they're in there in that situation. So I'm just giving a little example that's also kind of part me, if that makes sense. But just hopefully gives you an idea. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Next we've got Andy Matheny and Amber Boak. You're going to be coaching for Alicia Stokes Navarro. Alicia, can you just wave or let yourself be known? Because I know you're here. I saw you before. Ah, there you are.
Hi.
Fabulous. Thank you, Alicia.
Can you talk about the vetting process the citizen journalism undergoes?
The vetting?
People can post more than location.
Sorry, let me start that again.
Can you talk about the vetting process the citizen journalism undergoes?
The vetting?
People can post more than locations. They can post observations.
That's right.
I'm asking if those posts are fact-checked.
This is one specific element of the site.
For instance, in a post today, a citizen journalist tells us that Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood.
That's right.
Jimmy Kimmel was with his family in Cabo San Lucas last night.
People don't read this with the expectation of it being true. Everyone.
Excuse me?
Everyone.
People don't have an expectation that what they're reading is true.
They read it with immediacy.
But you're using the word journalism, which means there is an expectation that what they're reading is true. But let me take it a step further. Let's pretend it was true that Jimmy Kimmel was intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood. It's not true, but we don't care. So let's pretend that it is, since that's what we're doing anyway. Why does that belong on our website?
Honestly, I think there's a shifting definition of what's public and private space.
There is, and we should care about that. But my question is, why should we care about a talk show host drinking at a bar?
Don't you think it's great that we're not putting them on a pedestal or worshiping them anymore?
I think celebrities are one of the bigger problems we face. But aren't we the ones building the pedestal? You've got a map that gives us their location.
The idea is that we're acknowledging that they're real people.
I wonder how many of us didn't already know that. But you're doing more than acknowledging they're real people. You're beating them up for it.
Aren't they protected by the piles of money they're surrounded by?
Okay. What's the line of demarcation? You make over X dollars a year and now you get to be treated by us as a regular person who's basically had an electronic bracelet slapped on their ankle? What does X equal?
It would be silly to name an exact dollar amount.
You're paid $55,000 a year.
Well, that's private.
Sorry. That's almost twice the national average for a family of four. Do your piles of cash protect you for this interview in which I'm intentionally stripping you of your dignity? And, by the way, I've managed to do it without lying once. So I'm going to give you another chance to answer my question before I answer it myself. What's the value of an unsourced, unvetted story about a grown man drinking at a bar? I can't give you all the time in the world. It's entertainment. My concern isn't for the celebrities. Even though as sure as we're sitting here, someone's going to get hurt. My concern is for the rest of us, who you're turning into a wild pack of prideless punks. That's Newsnight for June 24th. I'm Sloan Sabbath, filling in for Will McAvoy.
Okay, Andy, do you want to start this off?
Sure. Okay, so I have a couple of questions. First of all, everybody who turned in a tape today, needs to give yourself a big pat on the back, because this is heavy lifting material. This is a lot of dialogue. If you did the part that Alicia did, it's a little bit less than, you know, the other role, but still it's a lot for both. So congratulations. Just want to kind of like start that off with a big positive before we get into the notes, okay? My other question for you, Alicia, is where are you in your acting journey? What's your experience? How many years have you been at this?
I've been acting for probably like past 4 years.
Okay.
A little on and off, done a bunch of short films, taken a whole bunch of classes.
Okay. Well, 4 years in the spectrum of, you know, possibility is still on the shorter side. So I still consider you not super, super new, but rather new. Is that kind of fair to say? Just, you know, I mean, I know 4 years may seem like a long time, but really, I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years. So just to kind of give you some idea of, you know, it takes a while. It takes a while to develop your craft, right? So I just kind of feel like you're just a little bit newer. So I'm saying this in all positivity, because look, the time is what it is, right? You know, it's like, so I just want to kind of like put that in context of the kinds of notes that I'm going to give you. Okay. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So first of all, I joined late, and I know that, you know, Alex gave a talk, and we've all been talking about the scene, and I now have seen tapes of your character and just the tail end of the other character. So we've probably had a discussion about context and what's happening, but we are on live television, and this is an Aaron Sorkin writes boxing matches between people with opinions, right? He writes like a tennis match. He writes a boxing match, and you both have to be in it, right? You both have to have a very strong I believe, right? And so your role, and when I was reading the script, I thought, you know, the other role is kind of easy, right? Because all you really need to do is tap into, you know, your ideology. And when most of us are reading the script and reading that character, we go, yeah, I agree with him, right? So your role is a little bit trickier, right? Because your role is kind of like, quote unquote, the villain of the piece, right? The person who's kind of getting, you know, lectured. And so for me as the actor, I say, you need to really not give in and not give up and not tell yourself, I'm losing in this scene. You need to fight really, really hard to win. Okay? So when you're fighting really hard to win, we need to see that from the get-go. Because remember, guys, remember the circumstance. You're on live television. Now, I do a whole thing about, you know, we do like a sense exercise about our circumstances. And if you've ever been on live TV, and I have several times, there's lights, there's, you know, crew members walking around, there's adrenaline pumping, especially in a show like this where you know it's going to be kind of like a sparring match. You know it's going to be, you know, a situation where you really have to put forth your best, right? So from the very get-go, Alicia, and this is for everybody who did, you know, both of these roles, but especially your role, the other person has the first line. You have to be in it, because you have to already have the indication that this conversation's been happening, and there's a sense of heightened energy on television, on live television. So your energy has to have that sense of heightenedness at the very beginning. And when you go back and you watch the beginning of your tape, you're just kind of sitting there. And it looked very passive, rather than somebody who has their figurative boxing gloves on, you know, in this dialogue. You know, somebody who's ready to present their point of view. Does that make sense? And this is kind of important, because this, like I said, this is a tricky scene, and that's the trickier role of the two, in my opinion, right? So the entire time, and I'm not saying that it was, there were times when you had successful moments, and I saw it, and I saw, oh, she has the idea. She has the right idea. You just needed to carry that idea all the way through, starting from the beginning, right? So your first line as Bree when, you know, he's just said, can you talk about the vetting process the citizen journalism undergoes, the vetting? People can post more than location, they can post observations. That's right. Those two lines had to be the vetting. That's right. You need to be like punching back from the very get-go in order for us to see your point of view. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was really kind of like the overall thing that was missing is your point of view. And when I see a lot of familiar faces from our challenge last month, and last month had kind of similarities in the fact that the main character in that scene had a very strong point of view, had something they were very angry about and felt very strongly about. So both characters in this scene, both actors, you both need to start with a full tank. You, the artist, the actor, you have to start with a full tank of what pisses me off? What do I feel strongly about? What do I feel like I need to defend today? Right?
Because I need to play it like I was defending myself.
Well, defending something that you believe strongly in.
Yeah.
Right? So you feel strongly about X, right? And so the actor has to have a full tank before you even turn the camera on. What do I feel strongly about? What pisses me off? Right? And the example that I gave last month is it pisses me off when people go to Africa and shoot elephants in cold blood. Well, if I'm the actor playing the scene, that has nothing to do with the text of the scene, but I would sure fill up my tank with that. You know, you see how animated I'm getting like right now talking to you? Do you know what I'm saying? You fill up your tank with something like that, and that's how you approach the scene. Do you understand? You feel strongly about it. You're fighting, right? So this is a sparring match. It's a tennis match. He hits the ball to you. You got to hit it back, right? And that's really what it's all about. Now, the other thing too is, and the reason why I was asking about, your experience and stuff is, again, very challenging scene. If you guys get a 3-page scene with lots of dialogue, challenge yourself to memorize it. Challenge yourself to get off book. And the other part of that too is if you can't get off book, and listen, these days for self-tapes, they say you don't have to, and sometimes, you get 3 pages and it's a 24-hour turnaround and it's impossible, and I get that. So what that means is you need to have good cold read technique. So if you have good cold read technique, then we're not going to notice you dipping your eyes down to the page. You have your pages somewhere, here, like kind of showing you where it is off camera, but you have it somewhere here so that you're familiar enough with the script where you can be off book. But if you have to go to your script to grab it, you can grab it. Just make sure, the most important thing, again, go back and watch your tape. You're always landing the last part of a line, making eye contact. So there are a couple of times when you didn't land the last line, and that's when it was really obvious that you were looking down and grabbing it off the page, right? So the cold read technique, guys, and listen, every now and then it comes in handy and you have to have it, but that's really important, okay? So I saw a lot of stuff there that, again, it just needed to, you needed to, the strongest thing, guys, for me, if you do a scene like this, if you find your I believe, or it, another exercise we do in my class is it fucking pisses me off when, right? Those are the 2 exercises that we do to find this core, this way to fill up our tank. If you get that, that's 90% of it. Okay.
Thank you.
But congratulations for turning a tape in, because as you can see, a lot of people did not, and you did. So good for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Over to you, Amber.
I absolutely agree with everything Andy said. Like, I take notes as it's going through, and the first 3, she already said all of them. So perfect. Agreed completely. I teach a cold reading class. It's $39 in June, if anybody wants to do that. The big thing is, like she said, don't end the line down here. I also say when you end the line, keep it up for sure, same as what Andy said, but then you're set up for the reaction. So it's dual purpose. It's not just that it ends the line, but that we're ready for the rest. So that's the biggest takeaway. A couple more specific notes on the part. Honestly, that's your leg to stand on in that moment, right? That line in particular. Do you want people to be on your side or not? Do you?
Yeah, I want them to be on my side. Yeah.
So that's a line where we could make sure that we show that. We need people to like you, right? Even though this is the villain-esque character, like we were kind of saying, you're still going to fight for what you believe in, and you need people to come to your side to get that. So make sure we're looking for the reactions to see if what you're doing is working. And why do you care if people agree with you? Why do you care if people come over to your side? Did you decide that?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Did
I was
you?
writing down something. Go
No,
ahead.
you're good. Did you decide why you want people to agree with you? Like why this is so important to you in the first place?
No, maybe not, I guess. I don't
So
know.
there's a few different there's many different places you can find it, but one that stood out to me is like, well, they can hide behind all the money they're surrounded by or something like that.
Right, right.
So on that section, like maybe you're jealous of that money. That could be a good motivator for you there. And some of those clues are within the script, but even if you can't find them as an actor, figure out something that just makes sense. A lot of the answers are on the script for you, but if you're going through and you can't find it, pick something. We never want to go in with nothing, and eventually you'll find more the more you train and the more you run it even. So I forget who was saying it earlier, but it's like there's a setback when they're not giving you what you want. We want to see that for a split second as you're hearing that news and taking that in, but then overcome it as well. Don't just stay beat down by it. But good. I think there's plenty of notes to work with. Nice job.
Thank you.
I just want to add one more thing. What I also liked is the fact that you had some sort of like moment. You had a breath after the last word of dialogue was said, and it was said by the other character, right? And so what I really liked is you had like a long fade out where it was just on you. That's really important, guys. What drives me crazy when I see actors self-tapes is the last line of dialogue is spoken and boom, we cut, right? It's really, really important to see that last breath, and especially if it's on you reacting. Okay, so that was really, really nice. Good job on that.
Okay, thank you, ladies. We are going to move over to Ellis Meng. We're going to watch your tape, and Lauren Patrice Nadler and Lisa London are going to coach for you. Lisa's going to give you her feedback first because she has to pop off after soon. Okay.
Can you talk about the vetting process the citizen journalism undergoes?
Vetting?
People can post more than locations. They can post observations.
That's right.
I'm asking whether those posts are fact-checked.
This is one specific element of the site.
For instance, in a post today, a citizen journalist tells us that Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood.
That's right.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was with his family in Cabo San Lucas last night.
People don't read this with the expectation of it being true.
Excuse me? People don't expect what they're reading is true?
They read it for the immediacy.
But you're using the word journalism, which means there is an expectation that what they're reading is true. But let me take it a step further. Let's pretend that it was true that Jimmy Kimmel was intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood. It's not true, but we don't care, so let's pretend that it is, since it's what we're doing. Anyway, why does it belong on our website?
Honestly, I think there is a shifting definition of what's public and private space.
There is, and we should care about that. But my question is, why should we care about a talk show host drinking at a bar?
Don't you think it's great that we're not putting people up on a pedestal and worshiping them anymore?
I don't think celebrities are one of the bigger problems facing us. But aren't we the ones building the pedestal? I mean, you've got a map that gives us their locations.
The idea is that we're acknowledging they are real people.
I wonder how many of us here didn't already know that. But you are doing more than acknowledging they're real people. You're beating them up for it.
Aren't they protected by the piles of money that they're surrounded by?
What's the line of demarcation here? You make over X dollars a year and now you get treated by us as regular people who's basically had an electronic bracelet slapped on their ankle. What does X equal?
It would be silly to name an exact dollar amount.
You get paid $55,000 a year.
Well, that's private.
Sorry, but that's almost twice the national average of a family of 4. Do your piles of cash protect you from this interview in which I'm intentionally stripping you of your dignity? And by the way, I've managed to do it without lying once. So I'm going to give you another chance to answer my question before I answer it myself. What's the value of an unsourced, unvetted story of a grown man drinking at a bar? I can't give you all the time in the world. This is entertainment. My concern isn't for the celebrities. Even though as stressed we're sitting here, someone's gonna get hurt. My concern is for the rest of us, who you're turning into a wild pack of prideless punks. That's Newsnight for June 24th. I'm Sloan Sabbath, filling in for Will McAvoy.
Okay, Lisa, over to you.
Hey, Ellis, how you doing?
Hi, Lisa.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
What a surprise. Okay, so good job. First of all, that was a lot of good job on getting that all done. So that was really well done for you. I thought you had some good moments in there. I did believe in the middle of this scene that you had an attitude, it wasn't just saying lines. I got the vibe that you did not really respect this person or think they knew what they were doing. Was that correct in what you were thinking when you made that choice?
Yes, I don't think I totally don't think he's a real journalist.
Right. So your attitude, I felt that. So I thought that was good. I liked it. Couple of thoughts that I wanted to say just as like tweaks on it for me. When you talk about the beginning, when you start your opening line, what's your opening moment there? Because the one thing that these guys have talked about before is your mid-conversation, if you remember. So that opening moment, I'm not sure it was nailed for me because it was like if you took it as you're already in this conversation with this person. So that was one thing I thought you could have hit a little bit stronger. That one moment. Did you think about that when you were doing it? Ellis, did she freeze? Hello? Uh-oh.
I think she may have frozen. This is being recorded, so you can continue with your feedback, and then we can.
Am I back?
Oh yeah, now you're back.
Sorry, my internet. So I actually started recording. I started the take a couple lines before where it says start, but then I think I just edited it out.
Oh, got it. Okay. Understood. Just that moment at the top for me, I felt like, can you talk out like the little bit of the dig, the little bit of like the challenge at the top needed a little bit more stronger for me. And then the other thought that I had for you is when you get into that, when you're talking about the money. And you made the choice, you're paid $55,000 a year, and Bree says, well, that's private. And I feel like you could have changed up a little bit in the beginning of that speech, like sorry, like condescending, sarcastic, just a different like tone in it, because when that's almost twice the national average, like something a little bit more of a sarcasm or, like I said, condescending or a dig in the beginning there. Just in that part, because the middle, I thought when you were talking and you really had an attitude that they were not real journalism, but I would have liked to see you change up a little bit of the tone in how you said things in that next speech. Does that make sense?
Yes.
A little bit, just more like, well, sorry, maybe you, oh, sorry, like you're not really sorry. When you say, well, that's private, you're like, yeah, well, sorry. Okay. But that's almost, and then sarcasm, a bit of that, and that which is stripping you of your dignity. I don't know. It's just choices. That's what acting is all about. It's all about choices and different ways to play things. So when I'm looking at it, little things that I feel you could have layered in a little bit more just to give it more of, variety in it. If that makes sense, right?
Yes.
But I thought you did, there were some really nice moments in there. At least I felt you had an attitude towards Bree. So I thought that was really good. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And I'm gonna pop off, you guys, because I have a meeting at 1:30 today. But it was a pleasure, and Sean, thank you, and I hope to be back next month. I'm gonna put this one last thing. See you guys.
You know, hi, Ellis. So, piggybacking on something that Lisa was saying about, the variety in it and how it's like your choice versus somebody else's choice. Everyone actually, even in this room, in the world, in this room, is having a different experience of the same experience, if that makes any sense. But as long as we're honoring the writer's intention, no matter what your choice is, it can be truthful and compelling, and then it's somebody's opinion. It's not wrong or right, it's just different. Everybody has a different truth. I actually really, as long as you're honoring the writer's intention, I think it really works. I really liked what you did, Ellis. I thought it was, so here's what I'm going to say. It was very strong, but I think it could be stronger. And I think what it has to do with is that you personally don't trust your own choices, and they're quite good. Like when you started this off, you reminded me of so many reporters these days that have this smug, like, I know what I'm doing, and they have like zero respect for the person they're interviewing, and in some cases they should have respect for them. In this case, I'm kind of on Sloane's side, and there was this smugness about you that was truthful. I don't think it was arbitrary. Oftentimes people see their scripts and they go, well, this character's doing this, so I'll just do that, without inserting into it on a personal level what it means to you. And I felt like that was there, and you might be not comfortable with actually sharing your own opinion, and you did. It snuck through, even if you didn't want to. So for example, and then you used some, I think you employed some interesting tactics that really worked. Like, I don't know whether it was if you had a line problem, although I will talk to you about that. Like, you looked up to see the post, like you took a different eye line to say, so there's a post today, and you read it from your journalism. And I don't know if that's done on the news, but it worked for me because it supported what you were doing, and it gave you a different point of view. And you were cutting her off, like cutting them off terrifically. Like, excuse me, it came naturally. And there's like, everybody has to kind of struggle with getting cut off or being the cut offer until they get it right. And that just means it feels spontaneous. So that was terrific. And I think that you were employing a little bit of what Lisa was saying at this point when you were like, but let me take it. No, where is that line? You said, oh, it's not true, but we don't care. I was like, yo, that was so like passive aggressive, but aggressive. You let them know. And I was saying, like, in those moments, that was really strong. And I think throughout it could be stronger. You were responding nicely to everything. In the end, though, it felt a little bit like you were unstable with the dialogue. You were like stubbing your toe on certain lines, and it wasn't coming through clearly, but that's just nitpicky. But you were adding little words and dropping little words like articles. And, I mean, of course, it's too late now that you hear this from Alex, that this has to be word perfect. There's a lot of casting who are like that too. Like Jeff Greenberg is famous for 100%. Like, if those words aren't right, you could say, I don't know what you're talking about. And you might say, I don't think I know what you're talking about. He'd be like, nope, that's not the line. Like he'll stop you in the middle of your audition. So, and that only comes from knowledge of like coaching people who have been in those situations and coming back and, and being able to relay that information further. So when you have, 29 years in the business, you learn a few tricks. The taping is a game changer though, because you don't actually go in the room anymore. So you can only take it from people who can relay it to you. But I thought it was a good job. I thought Lisa covered, what worked for her. And I feel like in general, just knowing what I know about watching you, Ellis, that there is a strong, feisty young woman in there that is very opinionated and intelligent. And I think that you have to trust it. You just have to trust it. And it's not about getting louder or screaming or being more aggressive. It's just something internalized that becomes truthful. Like, I'm unafraid to share my opinion right now because that's what's going on for me.
Totally. Thank you. Yeah, I was really doubting myself. I did it the first take and I was like, I asked my reader, do you think I'm a little too opinionated acting too opinionated for a news anchor? And he's like, no, you're fighting here.
Only someone like you would ask themselves that question. Yeah, no, I thought it was good. I mean, I think that you can just keep expanding on that part of yourself. And when you're having thoughts, honor them. You know, sometimes it's telepathic. Sometimes we're being told a story and the conversation we're having with ourselves, doubting it is the wrong thing to rise to. That's all I'm going to say right now.
Yeah, thank you.
And by the way, before I said something about this martial arts kid, I just have to add this. He's in the new Karate Kid movie. That was my point. Yeah, so he learned martial arts to do this series, and you know, it's come around again. So it was kind of an unfinished story when I told it, and I was like, why would I tell a story? You know, 5 years ago he was in the series. Who cares? Now he's in Karate Kid.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's coming out soon too, right?
May 30th. That's why I mentioned three things happening currently right now, and I aborted his story. So
I love that.
Head, brain.
Okay. Steve Toft, you'll go up next, and Andy and Amber are gonna question you again.
Can you talk about the vetting process the citizen journalism undergoes?
The vetting?
People can post more than locations. They can post observations.
That's right.
I'm asking if those posts are fact-checked.
This is one specific element of the site.
For instance, in a post today, a citizen journalist tells us that Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood.
That's right.
Jimmy Kimmel was with his family in Cabo San Lucas last night.
People don't read this with the expectation of it being true. Everyone...
Excuse me?
Everyone...
People don't have an expectation that what they're reading is true?
They read it for the immediacy.
But you're using the word journalism, which means there is an expectation that what they're reading is true. But let me take it a step further. Let's pretend it was true that Jimmy Kimmel was intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood. It's not true, but we don't care, so let's pretend it is, since that's what we're doing anyway. Why does that belong on our website?
Honestly, I think there's a shifting definition of what's public and private space.
There is, and we should care about that, but my question is, why should we care about a talk show host drinking at a bar?
Don't you think it's great that we're not putting people up on a pedestal and worshiping them anymore?
I don't think celebrities are one of the bigger problems facing us. But aren't we the ones building the pedestal? You've got a map that gives us their location.
The idea is that we're acknowledging that they're real people.
I wonder how many of us didn't already know that. But you're doing more than acknowledging that they're real people. You're beating them up for it.
Aren't they protected by the piles of money they're surrounded by?
Okay, what's the line of demarcation? You make over X dollars a year, and now you get to be treated by us as a regular person who's basically had an electronic bracelet slapped on their ankle. What does X equal?
It would be silly to name an exact dollar amount.
Well, you're paid $55,000 a year.
Well, that's private.
Sorry, but that's almost twice the national average for a family of four. Do your piles of cash protect you from this interview in which I'm intentionally stripping you of your dignity? And by the way, I've managed to do it without lying once. So I'm going to give you another chance to answer my question before answering it myself. What is the value of an unsourced, unvetted story about a grown man drinking at a bar? I can't give you all the time in the world. It's entertainment. My concern isn't for the celebrities, even though sure as we're sitting here, someone's going to get hurt. My concern is for the rest of us, who you're turning into a wild pack of prideless punks. That's Newsnight for June 24th. I'm Sloan Sabbath, filling in for Will McAvoy.
Okay, how about we swap it? Amber, you start first.
For sure. Give me the one that doesn't need as many notes. No, I'm just kidding. Good job. Good job. No, and really, really nice work. I have a couple notes for you, but it was really more nitpicky. Like I was writing down specific lines that I just thought could have been stronger. But the first thing I wrote is, I liked that you knew you were right. right? You had an opinion. We've been talking about that. We came through. It was a little cutthroat, and I love it. News can be cutthroat, especially in the newsroom. I liked the little chuckle when you were talking. I think you could, when you say something about a step, I put dig deeper, a step further. I don't know what line that is. Anybody know what line that is? I was multitasking. It's in here. I can find it and let you know specifically. But the next step, maybe something along those lines. And then, oh, did you find it?
No, but I know what you mean.
Okay, perfect. I can find the specific line too. Maybe try to be more proud or even a slight to them when you're saying, like, I did it without lying. I thought we could have had more fun on that line in particular. And then when you say my concern, is it really only for you, or are you kind of advertising that you're doing this for the people as well?
In this case, I really expected that. I mean, she knew what was going to happen. She was so setting this guy up to, tear him up on live TV because she hates the app. And so she already knew what she was doing. So I think it was more for her than for the people. Because this is a coworker also.
Yes, yes. When you say the line "my concern," though, correct?
Yeah, but I thought it was more for her, to make sure she could get to this guy. That's what I'm getting at, not for the people.
Got it. Okay, I felt like you were making it a little bit more about you in particular. Like this is my concern. I felt that it was still at her, but maybe a better way to phrase it is, why is it a concern of yours? It does put pressure on her.
My guess was only that she had thought about it quite a while before she started this interview.
Okay.
And that was just where I was coming from. So
okay, I could see that working. I just think it could be even more in that moment. I think we can build more at that part, is what I'm getting at overall. Sure. But we're off to a great start. I'm just curious now. I felt like the very beginning, eyes were so connected. I felt like I saw them scanning just a touch at some point. And I'm like, I don't want to be like, oh, you're using a teleprompter, because if you were, it was not super noticeable. But just in case, I am a person that does this. It's like I've been in class and I am focused on the actor, and they're like, it looks like you're reading something, and I'm like, I am not reading something. And something I've found that helps me is to focus on one eyeball instead of both when I'm talking to someone sometimes. Not always. It depends on like the distance you're at too. But that may be something if you were, I assume were you reading with your wife?
No, actually, my daughter was the reader there, that little girl right there.
Nice. Perfect. So just maybe when you're looking right at her, if you're noticing that at all when you watch back, it's real slight, but sometimes just instead of this, focus more in one place.
Got it.
But nice job.
Thank you.
Great, Steve. So I also agree with Amber. I thought it was very successful. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but once again, guys, if you sent a tape in and if you were like 90% memorized, big kudos to you, because this really is a big challenge, a big undertaking. So I really just have nothing but an admiration for you, Steve. And I want to talk about, I think for you, so here's the thing. Everybody has an essence that they bring to the table, right? So, we're dealing with a very visual medium. And so as soon as we see you, we're getting a sense of you. We're getting a sense of your essence. And the thing that I loved about this is that you not only had the vibe of this guy, you were dressed like this guy. And you can see with Steve's wardrobe choice how important wardrobe is as a visual aid in your auditions, right? So I just got it. Like in the first couple of seconds, I got it. And that is crucially important for auditions, because the casting people and the producers have to also get it visually. We see you before we hear you. So that was great. Now, I thought that, so as we've said many times before, we are in mid-conversation. We're also on a TV show, and I've already talked about that heightened energy that we have on television. So your first line is, can we talk about the vetting process, right? Because the majority of my notes are going to kind of echo Amber's in that what really was kind of missing here, it was kind of the same attitude and the same read all throughout. And that's successful to a certain point because again, you got the fact that here's a guy who's grilling this person, and I got to see like a little glimmer in your eye, and that's important. Having said that, in a 3-page scene, we have to find transitions, we have to find beat changes, we have to find changes in energy and what is happening and how we're kind of saying the same thing to this person over and over again. So we have to find new ways to say it. We have to find new ways to hit the tennis ball over the net. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
that's important for the actor to find those. And here's a little tip for everybody who did this scene. That first line that the Sloane character has, that's a transition. You've already been talking. Can you tell me about that vetting process? That's a way to start the scene that grabs our attention, right? So if you already know that you've been in the middle of the conversation, if you make your very first line a transition point where you're kind of like changing the tone of the questions, boom, all of a sudden you have a lot more energy to start the scene. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because it was a little flat. And so far the scenes that I've seen, that first question has been a little flat. But you can change it up immediately by making that oh, and by the way, it's almost like, you know, when you see, there are certain little phrases that give you a clue that it's a transition, like, you know, or listen, or I have an idea, or those types of little mini phrases. That gives the actor a clue that we're kind of like onto a new beat, a new transition, a new something, a new bit of energy, right? So think of that first line, guys, as your first transition. So here's the other thing about Sorkin, guys. Find the humor, find the irony in Sorkin, find ways where you can really enjoy yourself, especially if you're playing the Sloane kind of character, right? The other character, not so much fun. I mean, they're you know, if I were coaching that role for an audition, I would, with that actor, find ways for that person to have fun. But with the Sloane character, you are just in your element and you are like, you know, giving these, you know, you've got these wonderful words to say and you're nailing them. So the actor needs to really enjoy that more. Okay, so you have to enjoy it more because it kind of moved quickly, but almost too quickly, right? You need to find those transition moments where you can like take a little beat. And Amber actually pointed out one and I found it. And let me see if I can find it again. So there were a couple, right? So
let me take a step further. Somebody found it and put it in the chat, was one of them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly the thing that I underlined too. Exactly. So that again, but let me take it a step further. That's a little indication that we're going to kind of change up the energy. We're going to change up the way I'm going to ask you this question, right? So that's one. The other one that I saw too was, I mean, there's actually several, right? There's actually several transitions. And it's really important, guys, when you guys are doing a 3-page scene to find ways. Okay, let me just give you an example of what could be a transition. Bree says, aren't they protected by the piles of money they're surrounded by? Okay, what's a line of demarcation, right? So again, that's kind of like a point where you nail them and you really lean into that line there. And the other one was, oh, and this is like just, this line is begging for a little pause. Oh, here it is. Okay, so that very last wonderful, juicy, you know, paragraph at the end. So Sloane says, so I'm going to give you another chance to answer my question before I answer it myself. Boom. What's the value, right? You kind of like blew right into it, but it kind of needed that dramatic pause before you ask the question. Think of these scenes, guys, like music, right? They're like a song. And songs don't just do the same note the entire time, the entire way through. They have pauses. They have pauses for dramatic effect. So you have to also find those musical pauses for dramatic effect as well, okay? So again, overall, very successful. You look like the guy, you have the vibe of the guy, the mode of being of this guy who's on TV. You could play this kind of guy. Your next step, my kind of like next level overall note to you is find the transitions, find ways to relax and enjoy those transitions, right? Really, really, because there was just a little bit of a kind of like a wanting to get through it. And I get it because it's 3 pages and it's a lot. But there was, again, just slow it down and find the ways where you can just, revel in these delicious transitions that Sorkin puts in his scripts. And then you've got, you'll be in that top percentile of people who send their auditions in. So good job.
There is so much in this script right here, and I did over focus on the pace. That I knew what it was supposed to be, and I heard that from other people, and I over focused on that a little much and should have taken a couple extra beats, just like you said.
I get it, and it's funny because we don't really necessarily have to sacrifice pace for finding those moments, right? You don't really have to sacrifice a lot of pace. It's just, da 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 da. Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, that's not a big pause, but it is a pause. It is a little bit of a beat transition where we kind of like are mixing it up a little bit, and that's what this needs.
Thank you so much.
Nice work. Thank you.
I'm going to run away. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks for being here, Amber.
And nobody messaged me that said they wanted the class tonight for free. So if you just didn't do it yet and you're free, find me on Facebook and I'll send you a code. But otherwise, no worries. Enjoy your weekends.
Get free 4 classes, guys. Come on.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, so we lose one coach, but we gain another. Lauren E. Chatham is here. Lauren, can you do your intro, please?
Hi, everybody. Good to see you again. Happy Friday. How did it get to be May? I'm like, wow. So I'm Lauren Chatham. For those of you who don't know me, my company's Intentional Acting. I created this technique because when I got out of graduate school, I didn't know where to start with a script, and I didn't know, and I had all these great techniques. And how do I put them together? And what do I do first? And how do I start? And then what do I do with a film and TV script? And so when I was asked to start teaching, I put that together, and it came into this thing called the 9 questions, which is one piece of intentional acting. And that's what some of the questions you'll hear me use and access as I'm coaching today. And if that's maybe I say something that makes sense to you, you're welcome to. I'll put a link in the chat and reach out for a free audition clarity call, and I'd be happy to meet you and see if we're a good match. Thanks.
Okay, so we are going to be with where are you? Rabinder. Fabulous. So Rabinder, Lauren, and Lauren are going to coach you. You get your double Lauren. Whammy.
Yay. Can talk about the vetting process that citizen journalism undergoes.
The vetting?
People can post more than their locations, they can post the observations.
That's right.
I'm asking you if those posts are fact-checked.
This is one specific element of the site.
For instance, in a post today, a citizen journalist tells us that Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated last night at a Soho House in West Hollywood.
That's right.
Jimmy Kimmel was with his family in Cabo San Lucas last night.
People don't read this with the expectation of it being true.
Excuse me?
Everyone.
People don't have expectation of what they're reading is true.
They read it for the immediacy.
But you're using the word journalism, which means they're expecting that it's true. But let's take it a step further. Let's pretend that Jimmy Kimmel was intoxicated last night at Soho House in West Hollywood, which he was not. But we don't care since that's what we're doing anyway. Why does that belong on a website?
Honestly, I think there's a shifting definition of what's public and private space.
That's true. And we should care about it. But why should we care about a talk host drinking at a bar?
Don't you think it's great that we're not putting people up on a pedestal and worshiping them anymore?
I don't think celebrities is a concern right here. And aren't we the ones putting them on the pedestal? You give us a map of their location.
The idea is that we're acknowledging that they're real people.
I wonder how many of us didn't know that. But you're doing more than acknowledging they're real people. You're beating them up for it.
Aren't they protected by the piles of money they're surrounded by?
Okay. What's the line of demarcation? You make X dollars a year and now you are considered as a regular person who gets an electronic bracelet slapped on their ankle? What does X equal?
It would be silly to name an exact dollar amount.
you get paid $55,000 a year.
Well, that's private.
Sorry, that's twice the national average for a family of 4. So, is the price of cash protecting you from this interview where I'm intentionally stripping you of your dignity? And by the way, I managed to do it without lying once. So I'm going to ask you again to answer this question before I answer it myself. What is the value of an unsourced, unvetted story of a grown man drinking at a bar? We don't have all the time in the world. It's entertainment. My concern is not about the celebrity. As sure as we're sitting here, someone is going to get hurt. My concern is for the rest of us who are turning into a wild pack of prideless punks. This is News Night on June 24th. I'm Sloan Sabbath, filling in for Will McAvoy. Good night.
I just loved that switch that you did. Okay, ladies, over to you.
I'm like, here I am, back to myself.
Hi, Rabinder. Is that
Yes, yeah, you said.
we've met before. I've seen you before, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Boy, you're sassy. I actually love. I love the. What'd you say? I am.
I am in real life too.
You know, here's something to bear in mind for like all of you, even moving forward, even though you're not doing it, you've already done it. But like right before this, you said to them, you know, you're setting up a breeding ground for stalkers and murderers. You talk about Kristen Bell and her kid at the movies. They're going to bump into sycophants when they walk out. And I think that should largely influence because you've already put them on a path of like, you're not agreeing with this. This isn't new at the transition where the scene was marked to start. But that always has to be in your body. And I felt it was to some degree. You were revving up for the fight. This may be just, again, a preference choice, but it felt, which in many cases I look for this, but it felt casual in terms of like, you felt too familiar with this person. It didn't feel like there was like kind of an interesting separation between like your status, his status, the news you were doing, and what the position was. It felt like almost a personal argument with him. And I don't know if anybody will agree with that, but this is a TV spokesperson like sitting on television, and I think it made you a little bit vulnerable. And yet I loved your fight, meaning like made you vulnerable, meaning that if someone were watching this, they'd be like, what the hell does she have it in for him for? It was more like you have it in for him, even without this being a problematic app. And that's really what this is about. You're not on the news to like out people on your personal opinions about them, but you certainly can form some. So again, in acting, it's like our personal opinion blended with what the position we have, plus the writing, which is not our own. And then we have to put that all together and multitask and throw a lot of balls in the air at the same time. I thought you were fluent. I thought you were fun, although you were taking advantage of some of the dialogue. Like there was literally, you changed lines from like, this would be a bigger problem to that's not my concern. I mean, really blatant, disruptions of the text. But but they weren't like, it wasn't like you were talking about bunny rabbits and they were talking about apples. It's just that until you heard Alex's speech, I'm sure that you weren't aware. But in general, I always regard that. I'm really a stickler for the text. When I have people that come in for an audition, I absolutely hold them to the words, no matter how they get there. And they have to be truthful. They have to own them. So, unless it says, you can improvise a little bit, I just would never take that chance, because the writers are artists too, and their art counts. And they've written this and they've decided that these are the words I want to use to tell the story. And I just think it's really important for actors to honor it. I did not believe that you were doing it out of any disrespect. It was just like a lack of knowledge or a desire to just get the words out. Sometimes that's to your detriment.
I have not really, actually, I always do it at the last minute for whatever reason. I'm like, I need to get it in. So I had not really got to the text enough. So
That's
that
not
was
gonna
one
make
thing.
sense.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your honesty. That's never going to be a good excuse for the
Right, right. No, definitely. And then I realized that, oh my gosh, yeah. As soon as they started talking word perfect, I'm like, oh, that's not me today.
It was lovely. There was a lot of really good things about it. My God, this was just 10, 12 years ago. $55,000 could take care of a family of 4. What's that? I was like, it's a dated concept. But, I felt like there was a lot of places where you were operating really, really well. Like you had these, and whether I don't feel like it was totally by accident, sometimes natural actors just fall in and they're just like speaking the words and they speak to them. But like at the end, when you were saying something, what were you talking about? Before I'm going to answer this before I answer it myself. What is the value of an unsourced, unvetted story about a grown man drinking? I think for the first time, what I heard for myself was like, yeah, what the fuck is the point? Like, why would you report on that?
Right.
And I felt like, again, strong opinion. And it's a fine line between finding the difference between what trips the switch between you being, at your show, having the dignity of the host. We're different things to different people all the time. I'm talking to my friends on one thing, and then my mother calls. I'm like, what, Ma, what do you want? Like, it's just, we're different with different people in different circumstances. And it doesn't mean we're phony. It just means this is what's called for. So, but in general, I felt like, you were in the fight, if that helps.
Thank you.
I thought you were very interesting.
Thanks.
Okay.
Hi.
Hey.
Rabinder, right?
Yes.
Great. You know what? Like she said, you were in the fight, and I really loved your connection, and it without it being too casual, I felt like it was personal. I felt like you were connected, you were clear, you were on top of it, you kept it moving. Those are all really, really good things. And I think along with what she's saying, I mean, particularly, I wouldn't touch a word of Sorkin. I wouldn't change one word of Sorkin. He's so brilliant. And I'm a little nervous to speak because I didn't hear Alan's I didn't hear his lecture, and so I'm a little worried that maybe something I say goes in the wrong direction, and please redirect me. But I love Sorkin. I love his words, and when my actors are working on a Sorkin, it's like it's so it's just like it's a gift, right? So what you may do is slow, when you said it didn't take enough time with the text. If you get a Sorkin, you really got to take the time with the text. But
I realize that.
He's very clear about, why am I saying this word? Why am I choosing this word or this order of these words? And if you're not remembering them, it's because you really don't know what the meaning is and the difference of when you switch words around, or why you choose those 2 words. And so that's what you want to think about, rather than what a lot of actors will do is just say the words over and over and over again, over and over and over again. And part of what my technique does is help to internalize lines and not memorize them. Because when you get stuck on just saying the same words over and over and over again, you're most likely going to trip up on them anyway. Okay. Right. So you want to go in, why am I saying it in this sentence structure? Can you talk about the vetting process that citizen journalism undergoes? You could say that a bunch of other ways, but why does your character say it in those words, and say it in other ways and go, oh, this is what it means. This is why I'd say it like this. This is my point. Which leads me to that, one of the things, and I think when you get these huge chunks, and it can be Shakespeare and it can be other things, when you get these huge chunks of words, it's easy to get lost into an attitude. And I felt a little bit like your strength and power and your lack of self-consciousness, your connection was all there, but it fell to me into an attitude of, you're wrong, just admit it, you're wrong. And so then I don't want to, it's hard to listen to that for the whole time, right? And then it becomes a whole like mud pile of words, right? And the thing about Sorkin is he's so effing brilliant, right? And he does whatever topic he's writing about, he has done intense research on it. That's something that's so important to him. And so he is working to make a specific point. And so this is where, and I don't talk about tactics because what I believe in is intention, and then you break that down into beats. So I think your beats needed to be clearer within this. What are the beats, which will also is a form of memorization called chunking. But you want to break this down into beats, and then each beat, what is it? What's it that what's the point you're trying to get them to do? Because I think it's he writes very strategically, and I think your character is being strategic in the way that and you can look at different, I hate to, because of the political culture, I'm not going to bring up any particular name, but if you look at some of the reporters and the people on television right now, and they can be the really good ones are very specific. And when they meet their opponent, like I was just listening to something on NPR, when they meet their opponent or somebody who's on the opposite side of the fence of them, there's like an argument to lead from one thing to the next. And that's what I felt was missing.
Okay.
And I know that Sorkin writes that way. And if you're not kind of moving, this leads to this, and I'm debunking this myth, and I want to, and this, by debunking this myth, this is going to lead to my final point over here, right?
Right.
And when you break it down in that specificity, it's going to be a lot easier to memorize too.
Yep.
Because and then that specificity will get rid of the attitude, will help you get more specific on why you're choosing those words. Okay.
Okay.
And so for me, that's what a reporter does. And what I remember when you watch this, when the first thing I want to see is a reporter, and I didn't see that. I got it at the end. Like when you said, and I'm such and such reporting from such and such, or interviewing on such and such, or, I'm speaking, I'm a pundit talking about this. You say it in the last lines, right? And I went, oh, that's who she is. Oh, you say, I'm Sloan Sabbath filling in for Will McAvoy, right? And like, that's Newsnight from June 24th. So she's an anchor or a reporter and anchor. And also the thing to remember is when they're filling in for somebody else, they're trying to, especially woman filling in for a man, she is trying to prove her value so the network will give her own show.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
So she's got to make a very clear argument. But I wanted to see, it's almost like you need to say, I'm Sloan Sabbath filling in for Will McAvoy at the beginning of like you would do that off camera to establish for yourself who you are and where you are and who your audience is. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does.
I didn't get that until the end.
Okay.
But for such a difficult script, you did a great job with what you did. This is how to take it to the next level.
Yep, I get it.
Good.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate all the feedback.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to say too, because sometimes when coaches have worked with people in this group, they will like chime in. Just want to say, I just started working with Rabinder, and what I love about her is she has a great comedic sensibility, which I think was added another dimension to this scene that some people don't find. So I thought that was great. It just needed, I'm just kind of like echoing what the coaches have saying about kind of like the authority part of it, which, is, easy to add, not so easy to teach what you already know, Robbie, right? So that you bring to the table, which is wonderful, right? The other stuff can be, dug into later. So I thought you did a really good job.
Yeah, I was thinking, means I'm not going to take time, but I was thinking that I was playing that sly person in the beginning. Like, I know you. So I was being like with my humor. Yeah, but I had more relationship with her, like the other Lauren was saying. For me, I had been with her before. So that's why I came from a place of like relationship. Anyway, thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Well done. That was really good. Okay. Next, we've got Chuck. Chuck, are you here? I saw you before. There you are. Okay. Lauren Chattermer and Andy Matheny are going to look after you.
You're gonna keep me busy today.
Well, I just thought I'd give you another one.
Can you talk about the vetting process that citizen journalism undergoes?
The vetting?
People can post more than locations. They can post observations.
That's right.
I'm asking if those posts are fact-checked.
This is one specific element of the site.
For instance, in a post today, a citizen journalist tells us that Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood.
That's right.
Jimmy Kimmel was with his family in Cabo San Lucas last night.
People don't read this with the expectation of it being true. Everyone who reads it doesn't.
People don't have an expectation that what they're reading is true.
They read it for the immediacy.
But you're using the word journalism, which means there is an expectation that what they're reading is true. But let's take it a step further. Let's pretend that it was true that Jimmy Kimmel was intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood. It's not true, but we don't care. So let's pretend that it is, since that's what we're doing anyway. Why does that belong on your website?
Honestly, I think there's a shifting definition of what's public and private space.
There is, and we should care about that. But my question is, why should we care about a talk show host drinking at a bar?
Don't you think it's great that we don't put people up on a pedestal and worship them anymore?
I don't think celebrities are one of the bigger problems facing us. But aren't we the ones building that pedestal? You've got a roadmap that gives us their location.
The idea is that we're acknowledging that they're real people.
I wonder how many of us didn't already know that. But you're doing more than just acknowledging the real people. You're beating them up for it.
Aren't they protected by the piles of money that they're surrounded by?
Okay, what's the line of demarcation? You make over X dollars a year and now you get to be treated by us as a regular person who's basically had an electronic bracelet slapped to their ankle? What does X equal?
It would be silly to name an exact dollar amount.
You're paid $55,000 a year.
Well, that's private.
Sorry, that's almost twice the national average for a family of 4. Do your piles of cash protect you from this interview in which I'm intentionally stripping you of your dignity? And by the way, I've managed to do it without lying once. So I'm going to give you another chance to answer my question before I answer it myself. What's the value of an unsourced, unvetted story about a grown man drinking at a bar? I can't give you all the time in the world. It's entertainment. My concern isn't for the celebrities, even though, as sure as we're sitting here, someone's going to get hurt. My concern is for the rest of us who are turning into a wild pack of prideless punks. That's Newsnight for June 24th. I'm Sloan Sabbath filling in for Will McAvoy.
Sorry, guys, I was muted. Lauren, over to you.
Sure. Where are you?
Lauren.
Chuck, hey, Chuck.
Hey.
Let me pin you so I can see you. Good, good, good. You guys are handling all these words in this script really well, and and so it really is about the next step of this character and how to this situation, and how to get it and the point of view on it, really. And so, and I'm going to be really transparent, and like, I'm not 100% sure that I know this character and I know how it's done in newsroom. But I'm feeling very highly influenced by the world that we're in right now and what's going on in the world, and the relevance of that. And right, for this guy to make 55, twice the national average, like, this is old. So, and the thing that, like I said, to handle all the words and to move through it and to stay present and stay connected, you did all that. And often what happens is, with that kind of language and that much of it, that actors fall out, right? And so you didn't ever fall out. You were connected in there. the piece is that it's kind of like what I gave Rabinder. I want you to go to the next level in specificity, right? And so otherwise, what's tricky about this is, and something to just pay attention to, any script that is this long or any scene that is this long and is that you can fall into a one note situation. And so it felt really one note, and it felt like you were taken off your pedestal and you gave up your authority at the pedestal at the top of the scene. And so then you were kind of like, and then I didn't see the fight. I didn't see, and in a scene, and always in all acting scenes, the two characters have to need something from the other person. And I didn't feel that you really needed something as much as, okay, I'll just answer your answer. I'll answer you. And this is kind of, yeah, you're wrong. And I'm going to get off, and I just kind of going to suffer through this versus what's the, particularly you're representing something that you're going to stand for this. You're going to stand by this, that this is true. And you're going to stand by your lies. And your lies, and also the thing that's easy is to assume that this is because she calls you lying and manipulative, because she says all those things about you. Be careful that because I felt like you just decided, yes, you were, right? And I got caught. And so then what happens is we don't have a conflict in the scene, and we don't have the two characters needing each other. And those are two basic things that a scene needs to make it work, and that Sorkin is brilliant at putting in there, right? And so what the shift would be, if you did this scene again, it would be make sure there's a conflict in there. And I don't think you necessarily you're going to get on national television and agree that you're lying. No, I'm not lying. I'm telling the truth, right? This is my truth. This is how I believe it. I was listening, like I said, I was listening to something yesterday, and two political opposites were talking, and the reporter was trying to say, and is this true? Is this true? And this true? And this guy stood by it. Even though I would call it lies, he stood by it, right? And in that, what is it like that when you want to stand by something, what do you need that other person to do or say? You might even want to get them off knock them off their pedestal or off their, rocker, or how can you fight to have the last word? And all of that was sort of missing for me. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
What happens is that then the scene doesn't have an arc. It doesn't have a journey. It doesn't go from one place to the other. And that's why it's called one note in a way, right?
Yes.
And it can be the trap of Sorkin, but it's also, he's given you, so that's why I would go back and I would look at it from the point of view of I'm right and I'm not lying, right? I'm right and I'm not lying. And how dare you talk to me like this?
Yeah, that's great.
Right? And how dare you say how much money I make in front of the world?
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh, well, that hurt, is what it felt like when you said it. It's going to be more like you want to, I don't know the right word, I'm not finding the right word, not debunk, demyth, defraud. You want to discredit her too. See what I mean?
Yeah.
She's trying to discredit you, and you're going to try and discredit her. And that, now we have a conflict. And then when you break that down into beats, break that down into scenes. Okay, this happened. Well, let me discredit this way. Or how am I going to fight back here? And now we have something that's going to make us want to watch it for 2-3 pages. That helps?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great insight, Nora.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, Lauren has said everything that I've been saying for the entire class.
Right.
Yeah, especially for this character. This, like I said earlier, this is the trickier of the two characters, right? Because the immediate trap that the actor is going to make is I'm wrong, right? And so you were kind of playing I'm wrong throughout the entire scene. Now, I will say, here's a couple of really, really great things. First of all, Chuck, I think you've got a great look. I think you've got a great, who's the guy who plays the Incredible Hulk? Mark, who's that guy? Who's that actor?
Mark
thinking-
Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You got like a Mark
Yeah.
Ruffalo thing going on, right? Which I'm like a Mark Ruffalo thing. And it's like, what's great is that, you know, when you're playing this guy, I kind of, you know, I even saw, and maybe I'm just, you know, like imagining things, but I saw like a little bit of sweat popping up on your, you know, on your cheek. And it was like you were kind of squirming. So if this were a squirming scene, and there is an element of a squirming scene to it,
Yeah.
there is an element of squirm there. You squirm really well. So that's a great thing to know, right? But going back to what Lauren said and what I've been saying throughout the entire scene, it does need a bit more fight. I thought one of your more successful moments was in the very beginning, because you had this really, also, again, this is the first time I've seen you work.
Yeah.
But I talk about essence and what actors bring to the table. And you brought like this little element of snark that was so great. And I was like, ooh, this is going to be fun. This guy is snarky, right?
Yeah.
And it would have been really cool to see this snarky guy now, you know, put on the boxing gloves and really make this a sparring match.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And again, that kind of goes back to, we can't judge our characters, guys. We can't say this person's wrong, right? Because that's kind of what you were doing. Can't say this person's wrong.
Yeah.
You have to find the thing. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. So, so in my class, I do an exercise called I believe, right? And everybody talks about what they strongly believe in. And this is what I call filling up your tank, right? And then they get handed a monologue to read cold, right? So if somebody does a monologue about being anti-capitalism and being about, you know, we should take care of poor people, I will hand them the monologue from Greed. You know, the Michael Douglas monologue, Greed is Good, you know, from Wall Street.
Yeah.
And I will say, okay, great. You've just talked about what you believe. Do these words.
Okay. That's
right?
great. Yeah.
Well, so the point is that you fill up your tank with something that you strongly believe, even if the words that you have to say are diametrically opposed to what you actually believe. Sometimes, I mean, quite often, we're not going to pick up a script and go, oh, yes, this is perfect for me. This is exactly how I feel. That's rarely going to happen, right? So you have to find the thing that you strongly believe in, even if you're reading the quote unquote villain. You have to find all the, you know, your tank of what you strongly believe in. And now you've got to infuse that person with that point of view. And that's how you do it. Okay.
That's great. Yeah.
So that's really the thing. I mean, and otherwise, like, yeah, just say, you know, take everything that Lauren said, what you've heard me say previously. And then with your look, you know, I really see you booking a lot of these kind of like guys on the, you know, on the edge. One more thing, technically, taping wise, the lighting's great, too much air over your head.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And also there was a little bit of this going on. Did you notice that little bit of bouncy going on with you?
Yeah, I've had that problem before. Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody dinged me on that before.
Okay. So just be aware of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren.
That's, yeah, and I'm, you know, ditto Andy, and I just want to add one thing to the squirming thing. Something about, you're right, the squirm is great, but one of the things that often an actor will do is that they'll see that this character is squirming, and then they'll play the squirming. And instead, what I would encourage is to play that you're right, and then notice when she gets to you, and then you might squirm, right? So
Yeah.
the byproduct instead of the intention. Got it?
Yeah. That makes sense.
Good.
Thank you.
Nice work, Chuck.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job. Okay, so James Ciccone has arrived. James, are you available to do your intro? Got your camera
Absolutely, I'm here, Sean. Yes. Yeah. Hold on, let me just turn my camera on. 1 second. I'm just I am here and I'm excited to be here. Hold on a second. We see. Oh no. Apologies. Hold on. There we go. Sean, how are you? Hey everybody, good to see you. Thanks for having me. I haven't been here in a while, so great to see everybody.
Yeah, good to
See,
see
Dana. Good to see you.
there might be a number of new faces who don't know you. So can you just introduce
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah, quick intro. My name is James Saccone. I'm an actor, East Coast actor. I've been acting professionally for about 20 years. I book constantly and consistently, and I teach actors for about the last decade in New York City. And we're moving into our own studio. It'll be open 7 days a week in about 3 weeks. I've been renting space in a larger studio, well known in New York City for the last 8 years. So now I'm taking on my own space. But yeah, actors are on TV all the time, and many of them have come to HWC. Several of them who have booked television. Oh, you'll see Wendy post that all the time. Yeah, that's why she sends actors to me. But great to be here. Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Awesome, James. Thank you. We're gonna be watching Shana. James and Lauren,
Shana.
you're gonna coach for Shana.
Okay.
Can you talk about the vetting process that citizen journalism undergoes?
Vetting?
People can post more than locations. They can post observations.
Right.
I'm asking if those posts are fact-checked.
Well, specific comment on the site.
For instance, in a post today, a citizen journalist tells us that Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood.
That's right.
Jimmy Kimmel was with his family in Cabo San Lucas last night.
People won't read this with the expectation of being true. Everyone
Excuse me?
I don't see the tape. Are you
People
pinned the
don't have an
tape, Sean? You're not screen sharing the tape.
I'm seeing it.
Do you
Yeah,
see
I
it?
am. Yeah. Oh, it might just be on the view on your
Okay.
phone.
Do I have to pin the actor? Where's the actor?
No, let me share again.
If you're on your phone, it will only show you like 4 people in your gallery.
Okay.
I think you have to
But
swipe,
I don't know why you wouldn't see.
Oh, I see it now. Sorry, I had to swipe left.
now?
Apologies. I
Okay.
see it. Thank you.
I'll go
Which
back.
Lauren, Sean?
Oh, sorry, Lauren Patrice Nadler. Sorry, that's my bad.
Can you talk about the vetting process that citizen journalism undergoes?
Vetting?
People can post more than locations. They can post observations.
Right.
I'm asking if those posts are fact-checked.
Well, specific comment on the site.
For instance, in a post today, a citizen journalist tells us that Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood.
That's right.
Jimmy Kimmel was with his family in Cabo San Lucas last night.
People won't read this with the expectation of being true. Everyone
Excuse me?
Everyone
People don't have an expectation that what they're reading is true.
They're reading for the immediate.
But you're using the word journalism, which means there is an expectation that what they're reading is true. But let me take it a step further. Let's pretend it was true that Jimmy Kimmel was intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood. It's not true, but we don't care. So let's pretend that it is, since that's what we're doing anyway. Why does that belong on our website?
I think there's a shifting definition of what public and private is.
There is, and we should care about that. But my question is, why should we care about a talk show host drinking at a bar?
So do you think it's fair enough taking people up on a pedestal and worshiping them anymore?
I don't think celebrities are one of the bigger problems facing us, but aren't we the ones building the pedestal? You've got a map that gives their location.
The idea is that we're acknowledging that they're real.
I wonder how many of us didn't already know that. But you're doing more than acknowledging they're real people. You're beating them up for it.
Aren't they protected by piles of money they're surrounded by?
Okay, what's the line of demarcation? You make over X dollars a year and now you get to be treated by us as a regular person who's basically had an electronic bracelet slapped on their ankle? What does X equal?
It'll be completely silly in the exact dollar amount.
You're paid $55,000 a year.
Let's try it.
Sorry. That's almost twice the national average for a family of 4. Do your piles of cash protect you from this interview in which I'm intentionally stripping you of your dignity? And by the way, I've managed to do it without lying once. So I'm going to give you another chance to answer my question before I answer it myself. What's the value of an unsourced, unvetted story about a grown man drinking at a bar? I can't give you all the time in the world. It's entertainment. My concern isn't for the celebrities, even though as sure as we're sitting here, someone's going to get hurt. My concern is for the rest of us who you're turning into a wild pack of prideless punks. That's Newsnight for June 24th. I'm Sloan Sabbath, filling in for Will McAvoy.
Interesting. Good job. Yeah, really good job. I like the pace. I mean, pace is important. A lot of times actors drag the pace. This is a dialogue intensive, scene. It's a lot of words. I assume we're in a newsroom, so I feel a little bit like it was more of a personal thing that you had instead of more professional. I feel like you were angry at him, at this character personally, instead of just, you're looking to make a point. You're looking to rope him in. Is it a male or a female that you're speaking to?
Doesn't matter.
Is it a man? The other character, it really doesn't matter. So you're looking to kind of throw this fishing line out to get this person tripped up, but it feels like it's a personal argument and not a professional one. So if you watch newscasters, you'll see that even if they're, anti whatever political persuasion or anti whatever issue they're up, I felt like you made it a little bit too personal. Like you were personally angry instead of maintaining the role of a newscaster. I like that it built. There was shape to it. It got more. It was more arc to it. You picked up the pace and went a little quicker and started stabbing at him. But I think it could be more on a professional line. The way you ended it was almost. It felt like you were, fighting with somebody you were in a relationship with. I feel like you're framed a little bit loose. I think you could be a little bit tighter. I prefer to be offset a little bit and looking across the camera slightly, but that's more of a personal choice. What do you think, Lauren?
Well, I've been watching these for a bit, and Shana, what I thought actually was your fluency and articulation was great, which it increased your ability to get the pace going. And I feel like you pretty much stuck to the script, which is what Alex had said. So that was, you didn't need that prematurely to know that to do it. The thing is, I didn't feel that there was any pre-story in your body. And the whole, there's an entire page, like there's a reason why Sean included that. There's an entire page prior to the scene in the scene, which could be discarded if one wanted to leave you in the dark. And oftentimes they do that, right? When they're sending auditions, there's, I'm fortunate enough to have students at a level where not only do they get the whole script in advance, but, and oftentimes you won't, even if you just won't. So in some cases, you won't even have the early part of the scene. It frustrates the hell out of me when they send sides that literally you couldn't have given this page before so we could get the context, or they excerpt it out of the script entirely. So you can't tell the time lapse between two scenes that you're doing. And I think that's helpful. I think there's a lot of ways that casting could help actors that they don't. So we have to overcompensate for that. We have to be aware of that. In this case, you did get the whole, the scene before, and you're coming off of saying things to him like, people get murdered that way. People get doxxed that way. People get followed around that way. So it just started, you started on that first line. I feel like if nothing else, one of the things that I specialize in is creating environments, and I give people the option, but really I don't ever let anybody start a scene without having what I call a launch line, something that was said to them that provokes that first thing, and to hear it in real time. In some cases, I'll feed it to them. If it's on tape, they can just cut me out. But in general, you don't always get that opportunity. When we used to go to auditions live, you couldn't bring the reader in with you. So you had to behave as if you're in the situation long-term. You're in it for the long haul. So I give people a launch line. In this case, you have it right there. It says, "I'm sorry you feel that way." ACN Gauge is a citizen journal. It's like a moment before that for you would be, okay, can we talk about the vetting that takes place? So there's an opinion involved with what kicked off the scene for you. In this case, the scene's been kicked off for a while. You've been in conversation with him. There's already a sparring match. And a lot of this, which I was hungry for with you, Shana, is that you're not taking in what he's saying to you at all. You're just advancing to the next line, the next line, the next line. Who's reading with you? Is it Steve? No? Oh, why can't I hear you?
I think there's something happening with her audio at the moment.
Oh, okay, well.
Yeah.
That's one of her sons.
So just nod and blink. Or send it to me telepathically. you know, it was just
She
very.
said it was. She said it was her son that was reading. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, okay. You can communicate with me through chat. Okay, let me
I
just
said that.
let me take this further. So sorry. You've been, I don't know what I wrote there. And there were lines where, for example, when you say, I'm stripping you of your dignity, I just feel that you needed to, like, there were lots of lines where I felt like you needed to swim in the intelligence gotcha moment of it, and then take him in. If you're not taking him in, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, in general, all of us in this room speak to people, communicate, and wait on some level for what the response is going to be. And we're waiting with bated breath on whether or not we're going to get the response we want or the response we don't want. A lot of times in acting, we set up an expectation. We just, what's happening?
Just a hot mic. All good.
Hot mic. So there's an expectation that we already know how this is going to work out. And so we kind of play the end of the scene. Like, it's the gotcha through the whole thing that you had at work, Shana. And, you know, these are really simple things, like but they're not, because they're not second nature in the name of acting. Like, a lot of times people use the words when they're describing what they do. Well, I was just doing blah, blah, blah. I like ban the word just from any of my students. It's not just anything. It's like, this is an important moment in time and you want to get this message across. And I guarantee you in your own life, because I'm looking you in the eye right now, and you know, you've got a strong gaze, and it's important what you're taking in. It matters to you. And if you were to respond to me, had you had sound, then I imagine that you would have a strong opinion, not to necessarily defy me or, you know, debunk what I'm saying. Just in general, I know that I would get, where are you again? You keep moving. Oh, you're right at the top, literally the first person. So, you know, and then, what does it say? You gave him, oh, and then the thing with the timing, you say, I'll wait, or whatever that line is. Or you don't say, I'll wait. You're like, I can't give you all the time in the world. That's after the fact. So we got to get that before you say that, the reason you're waiting is from the thing you just said. What's the value? What's the value of an unscored, unvetted story about a grown man drinking at a bar? And why do you want the answer to that question? I'm guessing it's because it doesn't really matter. Like, he's making news out of nothing, which is what today is, today's news circuits. And then you immediately said, I can't give you all the time in the world. That requires, but the pause can't be like just silence with nothing filling it in. You've got to fill it in with your thoughts. If you're saying that line, what's the point of telling that? What's the value? I can't wait for, like, we can't wait forever. You got to elicit responses, and then you got to be experiencing responses as if it's fresh and new every single time. How do you make that happen? Again, there are exercises, there are you know, thought processes that you can go through. And again, you know, sometimes it takes a while, but training helps that. And it's something that I don't know whether you are or you're not, but you have a really nice presence. You're really strong in your convictions, but what are they? And I think that it's not as easy, that's script analysis. It's not as easy to just come up with what that is personally for you without some technique, and to keep working on it, because I think that, you know, I think there is a place for you in this. So thank you. So that's what I thought.
Great job. Yeah. Good job, Sean. Thanks, Sean. Well said, Laura. Well said.
Thank you, James. You too.
Next actor we have is Yashira. I feel like you're our favorite every month now.
Hi,
two,
everyone.
two,
Oh my
two for
goodness.
two. You've got pressure now. Lauren E. Chatama and Andy are going to coach with you. Lauren, Patrice Nadler, and Andy are going to coach with you. Sorry.
About the vetting process the citizen journalism undergoes?
The vetting?
People can post more than locations, they can post observations.
That's right.
I'm asking if those posts are fact checked.
This is one specific element of the site.
For instance, in a post today, a citizen journalist tells us that Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood.
That's right.
Jimmy Kimmel was with his family in Cabo San Lucas last night.
People don't read this with the expectation of being true.
Excuse me?
Everyone,
People don't have the expectation that what they're reading is true.
they're reading for the immediacy.
But you're using the word journalism, which means there is an expectation that what they're reading is true. But let me take it a step further. Let's pretend it was true that Jimmy Kimmel was intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood. It's not true, but we don't care. But let's pretend it is, since we're already doing that. Why does that belong on our website?
Honestly, I think that there's like a shift in definition of what public and private space.
There is, and we should care about that. But my question is, why should we care about a talk show host drinking at a bar?
Do you think that it's great that we're putting people up to a pedestal or worshiping them anymore?
I don't think celebrities are one of the big problem facing us, but aren't we the ones building the pedestal? You got a map that gives us their location.
It is that we are acknowledging that they're real people.
I wonder how many of us didn't already know that, but you're doing more than acknowledging the real people. You're beating them up for it.
Aren't they protected by the pile of money that they're surrounded by?
Okay, what's the line of demarcation? You make over X dollar a year and now you get to be treated by us as a regular person who's basically had an electronic bracelet slapped on their ankle? What does X equal?
We'll be silly to name an exact dollar amount.
You're paid $55,000 a year?
Well, that's private.
Sorry. That's almost twice the national average for a family of four. Do your piles of cash protect you from this interview in which I'm intentionally stripping you out of your dignity? And by the way, I managed to do it without lying once, so I'm gonna give you another chance to answer your question before I answer it myself. What's the value?
Hold on, just double checking because I think Andy lost the clip, lost seeing it.
I don't know what happened. I'm on my laptop and it's usually fine, but I just like moved my Zoom whole screen and the whole clip went away. And that's never happened.
It froze for a while on my side too. Yeah.
Okay.
Zoom also has this new thing up in the corner where it'll say Sean's page. And
Yeah.
it'll say the meeting page. It'll say the Sean.
Oh, the tabs up the top.
And so the tabs at the top, they've added that in. And so I would click on the Sean's.
So then what happened was I clicked on something that took the clip away. Okay. May I go first because I have to run, but I just want to, because I only saw like the first couple of lines.
Put it back and just start it at the end. Can we just look at the end?
Yeah, I'll bring it back. Yeah, I just wanted
so sorry.
I just wanted to pause to check on Andy. That's all.
Yeah.
So I'll bring it back.
I see it now.
Yeah, I'll bring it back just a minute.
Okay. Sorry. That's almost twice the national average for a family of four. Do your piles of cash protect you from this interview in which I'm intentionally stripping you out of your dignity? And by the way, I managed to do it without lying once, so I'm gonna give you another chance to answer your question before I answer it myself. What's the value of an unsourced, unvetted story about a grown man drinking at a bar? I can give you all the time in the world. It's entertainment. My concern isn't for the celebrities, even though as sure as we're sitting here, someone's gonna get hurt. My concern is for the rest of us who you are turning into a wild pack of private spunks. That's News Night for June 24. I'm Sloan Sabbath, filling in for Will McAvoy.
Do you mind if I go? Because I do have to go. Okay. So Jashira, you know, once again, I'm a big fan of yours. I thought you did a really good job. I have some thoughts. And this is really more about tone because look, you get it. You understand how, you know, you just understand so much about script analysis and to how to tackle a script and how to tackle a script like this. And the thing that I've always loved about you is you know how to inject so much of your, you know, personal stuff into scenes, and you have no problem connecting viscerally, and all that stuff is there. So my notes are more kind of like about nuance, okay? So I just kind of felt like it needed a little nuance in certain places where it got a little bit, you know, like, you know that I'm a fan of using, especially when we believe strongly about something and we're kind of angry about it, to use that anger as fuel, and that really helps propel us through a scene when we believe in something, right? So I think that is an important tool, but sometimes we need to kind of temper it a little bit or else it gets a little bit too much. And there are a couple of moments where, in my opinion, it got a little bit arch. Like when you said the thing about the family, it just got a little bit too, just a little bit too kind of, I don't know. It was just a little bit too much for me. And again, this is like a personal opinion. You know, other people might see that and go, oh, that's wonderful, right? So for me, if I were like directing you, I would say, great, let's do another take. Let's just pull that moment back a little bit. Okay. And what I would say to you also is, for you especially, because, you know, you're a very passionate, intense person, since you already have that, you already bring that to the table with a scene like this, now we can kind of infuse, go in the other direction, infuse a little bit more enjoyment and humor of what we're doing, and the fact that we have this person on the ropes, and we know that, you know, we are really, really going after them and having this moment where we're exposing them. So I think you could enjoy it just a little bit more. It was kind of just so serious all the way through. Aaron Sorkin writes, you know, dialogue that we enjoy, you know, and that the characters that he writes for enjoy saying them, you know. Gosh, even when Jack Nicholson did his, you know, you want me on that wall in A Few Good Men, he was enjoying the shit out of it. You know, it wasn't a 100% serious speech. It was a speech where he was just like having a wonderful time in this moment where he is displaying his point of view. Does that make sense? So I just think my overall note for you is just, you know, when you get this kind of material, find other colors where you can now enjoy it a little bit more, right? Because you have everything else. Everything else is there. It's really terrific, but that's really what I had to say about that. And I do have to go, everybody. Thank you again for everybody sending in and just tackling this, you know, I've already said it, but you guys, if you tackle this, you're already winners. So good for you. Get in touch with me if you want me to comment on your scene. See y'all
Bye,
later.
Auntie.
Bye.
Good
Take
to see
care.
you.
Good to see you too.
So hi, Yashira. Yeah, you're just always doing such good, strong, thoughtful work. You can see the technique in everything that you do. I felt like this required some note. Like last month, you nailed it. Like you booked it for sure. This I felt like, well, it was interesting because Andy said you were so serious, which I agree, but you actually got 3 chuckles out of me. I laughed when you were like, I wonder how, what's that line? I don't know. There was a few places where I chuckled. I was like, ooh, that's really cutting. But let me talk about what did or didn't work for me. So I felt like you were playing the end of the scene from start to finish. Now, granted, I have been making a point about how there's a whole scene before this that says you're clearly coming in for the kill. You're clearly doing that. But you know what came across to me, which is why this work was very good, but not for this audition necessarily, because you felt like an attorney that was beating somebody up on the stand. And it was so specific. Like you were giving him interrogation, and you are interrogating him, but it's a different environment. And I feel like with you can multitask even more. Like give yourself the task to ask him, almost to get him not to convict him, but to get him to admit he's wrong. I feel like that's a more nuanced thing that only a certain type of actor can do, but why not add that into the texture? You know, in general, what I teach comes with the task of asking you guys to make your performances very complex. And that's why I have a lot of series regulars. Like I work people from the beginning of their careers into a lot of main characters in shows. Like right now, Jeff Bridges is the lead in this, and my student Alex is playing opposite him in American Rust. It's 3 seasons on, it moved around from network to network. It actually cast at the beginning of COVID, and then they locked down and they canceled it for a whole year and still brought it back up again. And Jeff, what the hell I just said? Jeff Daniels. Jeff Daniels is not in this, but you're playing the character that replaced him for the interrogation. And he's the top at the station. And like, I think someone else said, you're vying for the role of like, you know, can you get this promotion? You're taking over. They don't put people in his place if you can't emulate what he does in your own way. No one's ever asking for an impersonation. They're just asking for a better version of something. And I felt like you had the opportunity in here. And this is, again, it requires, you know, very deep script analysis to believe that this is even available to you, but get him to say he's lying and have it be important that you reform him. That's just something I'm looking at where you're capable of potentially doing that. Because like I said, it felt like an interrogation and you felt like a really good cutthroat attorney. And what we missed from you is like, I think what Andy was saying was there was like a stoicness to your face. There was not, but again, there was something behind it. So I wouldn't call it wrong. I just think there were possibly more nuances in there. I love that moment where you turn to the audience. Everybody who chose to do that or to look at the copy chose a different part. And I think that's good and creative because it just shows you how many things are available to you within a script. There's no one way. It's just as long as it honors what the writer had written. I know one of the lines I laughed at was with the dignity line. I mean, you really like gutted him on that. I know I'm stripping you of your dignity. It was very strong, very powerful. And then in the end, I thought that you could have had a little more joy when you turned to the audience and said, I'm filling in for blah, blah, blah. Don't you want to see me every week on this channel? Because I can do this job. So there was a lot of things potentially at work in this, and you could have employed them, you know, and what I'm saying is this stuff is built into the script. That's expert writing. That's excellent writing. And the bottom line as an actor is you don't want to always go, okay, this was simple, this was easy. And that's why like Sean is launching all of you into the territory of like complicated characters with complicated material so that you can be ready for anything. And that's kind of what I do in my work. It's like, you know, I remember one of my students came in an auditor came in and said, you know, I'm in this class right now and we're working with really bad material. I'm like, why? It's like, so you can handle it. I'm like, pass on those projects. Like, just pass. Why would you want to learn how to work on really bad material? This is terrific material, but it's challenging. And you might rise to the challenge, but I'm seeing more opportunity for you to embed a lot more into it. But really, really nice job. Again, second language, I'm always fascinated, especially with dialogue like this, when somebody speaks more than one language and can execute the language in itself. But that's like saying to somebody, you know, like I know when I used to direct plays and people would come and be like, wow, how'd you memorize? Or I was in them. How did you memorize all those lines? That's like the worst compliment in the world. Like, what about my emotional state? What about my, you know, my imagination? What about my intuition? What about my connection? Like, I memorize the lines. That's kind of a given. No one's going to bring you on an audition and say, hey, you know, I have this part for you. And can you memorize lines? They'll ask you if you can jump out of a plane, and they'll ask you if you go horseback riding or swim in the ocean. My mother wouldn't do that. But, you know, the memorization, I just think it's and Andy keeps saying it too. It's like, you guys are doing, all of you did like so far, no matter what, you've done great. That's my notes for you, my dear lady.
Thank you so much. I was indeed trying to put like a lawyer type of
attitude
Well, listen,
because I was afraid of showing.
That's a huge testament to what you did. You
Yeah.
literally went after that and accomplished it. But was that the goal? And I feel like, you know what I mean? So just weigh those things. And when I do an exercise in my class, I do sometimes at the end of class, I do this ambiguous improv where we don't talk about what we're talking about. And it goes in an order where people can just, they jump in one after the other and they don't talk about what they're talking about. So they started off with something like, I don't know why you did that. Or what do you have to say for yourself? Or did you go? How was it? And they both, the direction is both of you need to be thinking about absolutely for real something. And then afterwards, we all talk about it. And it's amazing how sometimes everyone will get everything right. Like they knew what they were thinking, because I believe this is telepathic. And when you increase your connection to thinking about something for real, that will get out. If you're talking about something else, they're not going to necessarily know that because the words color in what you're talking about, but it still comes through more personal, more real, more believable, thicker, richer, more complex.
Got it. Thank you.
Well done. Not easy with that much like language when English is your second one as well. So good job. Next one, we are watching Dana. There you are. And you've got Lauren Chattermer and James coaching for you.
Can you talk about the vetting process that citizen journalism undergoes?
The vetting?
People can post more than locations. They can post observations.
That's right.
I'm asking if those posts are fact-checked.
This is one specific element of the site.
For instance, in a post today, a citizen journalist tells us that Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood.
That's right.
Jimmy Kimmel was with his family in Cabo San Lucas last night.
People don't read it with the expectation of being true. Everyone's just...
Excuse me?
Everyone
People don't have an expectation that what they're reading is true?
They read it for the immediacy of it.
But you're using the word journalism, which means there is an expectation that what they're reading is true. But let me take it a step farther. Let's pretend it was true that Jimmy Kimmel was intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood. It's not true, but we don't care. So let's pretend that it is, since that's what we're doing anyway. Why does that belong on our website?
Honestly, I think there is a shifting definition of what is private and public space. So
there is, and we should care about that. But my question is, why should we care about a talk show host drinking at a bar?
Don't you think it's great that we're no longer putting people up on a pedestal and worshiping them?
I don't think celebrities are one of the bigger problems facing us, but aren't we the ones building the pedestal? You've got a map that gives us their location.
The idea is that we're acknowledging that they're real people.
I wonder how many of us didn't already know that. But you're doing more than acknowledging the real people. You're beating them up for it.
Aren't they protected by the piles of money that they're surrounded by?
Okay. What's the line of demarcation? You make over X dollars a year, and now you get to be treated by us as a regular person who's basically had an electronic bracelet slapped on their ankle? What does X equal?
It'd be silly to name an exact dollar amount.
You're paid $55,000 a year.
Well, that's private.
Sorry. That's almost twice the national average for a family of 4. Do your piles of cash protect you from this interview in which I'm intentionally stripping you of your dignity? And by the way, I've managed to do it without lying once. So I'm going to give you another chance to answer my question before I answer it myself. What's the value of an unsourced, unvetted story about a grown man drinking at a bar? I can't give you all the time in the world. It's entertainment. My concern isn't for the celebrities, even though as sure as we're sitting here, someone's gonna get hurt. My concern is for the rest of us, who you're turning into a wild pack of prideless punks. That's Newsnight for June 24. I'm Sloan Sabbath, filing in for Will McAvoy.
Okay, over to you guys.
Really good, really good. How are you? Is she here?
Yes,
Hey,
I'm
what,
here.
Dana? How are you?
Hi.
Hey, Dana. So kind of like what Lauren said before. I just feel like the scene just starts and you're really not settled in the scene. I use a concept called the opening tone. What is the opening tone of the scene? Particularly in the days of self-tape auditions and that, we have to believe that the scene opens with where you're at and what's going on. And that's influenced by what we call, the moment before, and so commonly used. So what's going on before in the scene? What's going on before in the scene is that you've been there for a while. There's this whole interview that's happened before. It's kind of like if you went into a restaurant and you had a scene where you were on a date. If if the scene picks up and it says midway through the scene, we know that you didn't just get there and you're not just saying hi. We know that you've been settled in. So I didn't feel this element of settled inness. But I think the bigger question is, what do you want from the scene? What would be your scene objective?
My scene objective was to like promote my app and just like talk to the audience and like promote it.
But that doesn't really work out well because you're getting called out, right? And then what do you? So I would think it would be more of you want to justify this fake news, right? It's fake news. What do you want? You want to justify why this is okay. When she starts to call you out on that, you want to justify why this, news is, it's private and public or whatever that line is, and that's your justification. What's in the way of that, of your want, is the obstacle is her putting you on smash, so to speak, publicly, right? You get blindsided by this. And what do you do to overcome that? You got to do some sort of harm reduction. How do you feel about being called out publicly? You go to this interview, you think it's going to be to promote your app, and then you find out that you're up there to be ridiculed. And so how does that make you feel? I didn't see it. There should be a point in the scene where all of a sudden you realize this isn't going well, and now I'm changed. Right? We call it the reversal in the scene, where all of a sudden we're going this way, or the major beat change. The temperature in the room changes. Most scenes have that big reversal. The bigger the reversal, right? The better the scene. Everything's going fine, and all of a sudden, a brick falls off the building, and everything changes. I would have liked to see that. I just felt like you were kind of more like nonchalant to it and didn't really care. And I think as we journey through the scene, where the scene starts, where you've already been in this conversation, quickly it starts to go bad. It starts to go sideways. So I would have liked to see that uncomfortableness inside of you, and maybe even cutting off the interviewer. In the idea of it is this: do we believe it's truthful behavior? Are you creating a truthful behavior in this environment, in the context of the scene? Do I believe you're someone who's being interviewed and now getting torn apart publicly? How would that make you feel? How do you think you would feel personally if you went to any event? If you went to maybe you have a sibling or a niece or a nephew or a kid's public school thing, and all of a sudden, the PTA is there and they start chewing you out for something that you had no idea was going to come. How would that make you feel to be put in that situation publicly?
Right. Yeah, I think what I went with was because I read the whole scene, it kind of felt like the switch in my head happened earlier where like she was talking about like, oh, people are getting like murdered and stuff, and like my character very much went, I'm sorry you think of that, like, but that's just your opinion. So I guess I kind of went with the flow of that, but I should have considered the scene that was given instead of.
Yeah, I mean, like again, if you had this as an audition, if you had just this piece of it, you kind of have to look at it as, where's the shape from this piece that I'm going to perform? There needs to be a journey, a thread through the scene. We need to see the shape, the reversal, and the tone. Look, somebody mentioned, I don't know if it was Lauren, I think before, mentioned one note, which is a very common phenomenon. Now, one note, the epitome of one note is flat and dead, right? But you could also play one note as being angry and yelling through the whole scene, which isn't a good thing either. So we want to see shape, nuances, colors, and textures, right? Maybe tonality changes or physicality changes. How does the body feel attached to it? If my pace got quicker when I started to talk, maybe I would that line that I'm saying would be more important to me. Or maybe I don't have an answer. So I take that empty beat where I'm trying to process, well, what should I come up with? And there's that moment and shape. So all those little colors and textures. And I think what's crucially important, look, I book a lot of work and I never approach a scene as what's written. I mean, what's written there is a guideline for us. But imagine watching 30 actors who all are taking that action. There's not a lot of action in the scene. Sean didn't have that there on this one. But where it says, okay, I had one the other day where the scene starts with an interviewer actually interviewing the guy, which is funny. And it says my character is nodding while he's saying it. Now, you're going to get 40 actors who are going to start the scene nodding. I just chose not to do that. You have to, it's not paint by number, it's art. So you have to create, you know, your own masterpiece. It's not number 6 is red, number 5 is blue. Don't look at the action and the stage direction like that. Feel free to create. Javier Bardem has a really nice thing. It's up on Instagram if you Google it. His opinion about Ryan Murphy. I worked for Ryan Murphy twice recently this month, and he says that what he admires about Ryan Murphy is that he always looks for the actor who's not looking to please him, who's not looking to do what's exactly written, but is to bring their own version of the work. Now, of course, you have to honor the writing. You want to tell the writer's story, but there's risk and there's chance, and they're called choices, right? But you have to be willing to lose a job in order to get a job. It's that simple. Because numerically, you're more likely not to get cast than cast, right? 5,000 actors get submitted, 50 might read for a one-day guest star. Maybe 4 or 5 will get a call back. Only one's going to get the part. So if you approach it where, hey, look, I'm not going to get this anyway. Let me be free to do my art. You're in a much better position. Absolutely. Guys, I'm going to go. I can't take on any new actors now, but I know the other coaches behind me. I'll post a thing if you want to come on my personal page, my Facebook group. You can you can see who's casting what every day and all that stuff. We offer that for free to our community, and there's free readers there. But I'll post it in the chat. I'm going to head out. I'll stay on to hear what the other coach has to say.
Thanks, James. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, Vicky, good to see you. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me here.
Of
You
course.
guys are lucky to have such a good community. That's important.
Hey, Dana, you know, what I saw that I thought was great is you made so many choices in there. And there was, to me, there was a lot happening because of the choices. And I did see how you felt about the situation. And I did see this shift. Like, you got up and walked out of the scene, and this whole thing about, hey, what's going on in here? You were doing, there was, you really said, I'm going to make choices here. And also, in those choices, breaking up the if you will, all the, you know, that there's so much dialogue, right? And also I loved you checking in with the audience. And I don't know if they did that in newsroom back then, but today, very contemporarily, they'll like, let me fight for the camera, right? Let me fight for the camera. Let me get you to be on my side, right? And so that was a really interesting choice of doing that. I wanted to see that fight more consistently all the way through it, right? I wanted, so what happened, it's a gotcha scene, like meaning not, it's a gotcha scene in where the reporter is trying to get you. I think the problem is she got you too fast, right?
Yeah.
And like what I was saying earlier, like if you know it's a gotcha scene, you know this character is squirming, but if you approach the scene from that place, like I'm not gonna walk in. Let's say Lauren and I are gonna have an argument over acting, and she's going after me, and she gets me. I'm not gonna let her get me for as long as I can. Not that she would, she doesn't. I'm just teasing, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna stand my ground as long as I can, but when I'm losing ground is when I'm gonna squirm. Does that make sense? And it's not because I'm going to act as an actor, choose to squirm. It's going to happen because I'm fighting for something and I'm losing. Okay. And so you were fighting, but you didn't keep up the fight. And what happened is you were put on the defense too quickly. And so you became defensive through it. And so then it became about defending yourself through it instead of the offense of fighting for it. Does that make sense? I'm not a sports person, so it took me a long time to understand that. And so using more of that audience, right? And she's really trying to discredit and expose you. And I think the reason you said that, what was the line you said? Like, well, I'm sorry that you feel it that way. Like, it is so annoying when I hear somebody like they're talking about murder and this person has sort of the balls to say, well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. But they do it when those people do it, they do it with such confidence, right? And with such defense and so much of like what Andy was talking about earlier about being filled up with it, right? Filled up with their point of view. And so I felt like you were sort of filled up, but you needed to be more filled up with that point of view, right? And think about too, why does this character and I felt like at the beginning too, is that at the beginning it felt like you were it didn't stay this way, but it felt like you were the spokeswoman for this guy, is what at the very beginning of the scene, I'm like, it felt like you were the spokeswoman. By the end of it, when you're like, what am I doing here? You felt more like the app owner. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta be the app owner at the beginning,
right?
And that's probably being filled up more. And and think about this too. I don't know if this character, I may be wrong, but something to think about is, did this character know that this person was probably going to tear them down? Did they know that this person would? Is that true, Sean? You're nodding your head. I don't know if you're nodding to me.
Oh no, I'm nodding in agreement with your feedback. So, yeah.
But does this character? So what I'm the thing which helps you as an actor to make a point of view or a choice is that, do I know that when I get on this show with this person, like if Elon Musk got on the Rachel Maddow show, he knows Rachel Maddow can't stand him, right? And she's gonna do everything to discredit and expose and take him down. So either A, don't get on the show, or when they get on the show, they have a purpose knowing that this person's going to tear them down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I would look for it in the script or in the whole story if this character is going in there and being blindsided, or if the character is going in there going, I know this is my nemesis and I'm going to deal with it. But either way, this character can handle either side. Got it?
Mm-hmm. I agree. I was looking at the scene. I was like, you could play this as the asshole, or you can play this as the person who thinks they're doing good, but
the thing you want to watch out with is if you say, I'm going to play this character as an asshole, you are judging your character.
Yeah. So I kind of went with the good person thing, but because of that, I think
you just needed to hold on to it longer. You needed to believe it. Well, you needed to believe it more fully.
Yeah.
Like that other exercise that Andy talked about too, right? Like you just had to believe it so much that she can poke all her holes in it, but I'm not going to let it. I'm not going to let it. And then see what happens. Because I think what's interesting about acting is it's about the listen, and somebody we were talking about that earlier, is it's about listening. And I felt like you were listening, but you were listening from a defeated place and a defensive place instead of listening for her to say, you're right. That was great. You should have this app. Who cares if it's fake? Like you're listening for that. And then you're dealing with what comes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And in that space where one, you get to discover all sorts of things and it's interesting as an actor, and two, as an audience, we get to watch and see how is this going to unfold. But it's in that space of unknown. Good. I'm glad that makes sense.
Thank you so much.
I gotta go pick up my kid from school. Yes, thank you. It's always good to see you. Have a great month. And if you'd like me to look at your tapes, you're welcome to email. Put that in there and my info. And good work, you guys. Like everybody said, if you're doing Sorkin and you're getting through these things, bravo. Okay. Bye. Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren. Take care. Okay, over to Ivy. Let's have a look at your stuff.
And then there was one.
You and me, Lauren. Here we go.
Can you tell me about the vetting process that is citizen journalism undergoes?
The vetting?
Yes, so people can post not just their locations, but they can post observations. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, I'm asking if these observations, they are fact-checked.
There's one specific element of the site.
For instance, someone posts today that Jimmy Kimmel was seen visibly intoxicated at the Soho House at West Hollywood.
That's right.
But he was not. He was in Cabo San Lucas with his family.
People don't read this with the expectation of being true.
Excuse me?
Everyone.
People don't expect that what they are reading is true?
They read it for the immediacy.
But you're using the word journalism. What means that they are going to have an expectation that what they are reading is true. You know, but let me just take a step further. Let's say that this was true, that Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated at the Soho House at West Hollywood. Why does this information of a grown man, talk show host was drinking in a bar belongs on our website?
Honestly, I think there's a shift in definition of what's public and private space.
And there is, and we should care about that. But there is and should care about that. But my question is, should we care about a talk host show that is drinking in a bar?
Don't you think it's great that we're not putting people on a pedestal and worshiping them anymore?
I don't think celebrities are one of the bigger problems facing us. But aren't we ones building the pedestal? You give them a map of their location.
It is that we're acknowledging that real people.
I wonder how many of us didn't already know about it. But you are not just acknowledging they are real people. You are beating them for it.
Aren't they protected by the piles of money they are surrounded by?
Okay, what's the line demarcation here? You make over X amount of dollars a year and now you get to be treated by us as a regular person who is basically had an electronic bracelet slapped on their ankle. What does X equals?
It would be silly to name an exactly dollar amount.
$55,000 a year.
Well, that's private.
Sorry, that's almost twice a national average of a family of 4. Okay? Do your piles of cash protect you from being interviewed? In this interview, which I'm intentionally stripping you off of your dignity. And by the way, I've managed to do it without lying once. So I'm going to give you another chance to answer my question before I do it myself. What's the value of an unsourced, unvetted story about a grown man drinking at a bar? I can't give you all the time in the world. It's entertainment. And I'm not even worried about the celebrities here. I'm worried about the people who you are turning into prideless punks. That's new night. That's news night for the June 24th. I'm Sloan Sabbath and I'm covering for Will McAvoy.
Okay, Lauren.
Unmute. Okay, Ivy. So I'm going to hit you with a couple of things pretty hard. You know, I felt like it was interesting the way you started it off, and I would almost get behind that eye line, because what you did was you set yourself side by side, you know, like at a round table, the way a lot of these interviewers do. If that's the case, if that's what you wanted to pull off, then turn your seat sideways. And essentially what that does is that creates, you know, something really cinematic where you're turning on your side and you're having this conversation. And that way you're looking into the camera. I mean, oftentimes when people have driving scenes and they're looking straight at the person in the face, I'm like, is that person on your hood? It takes us out of the scene. How can you create the most amount of environment and atmosphere without not doing the audition for the person you're reading with? So a sideways posture, turning to the person and then looking not out here for the when you finally speak at the end, but turning it so we've, you know, I'm filling in for, what is it, Will McAvoy. So we still get your eyes. The one rule is make sure both of your eyes are always showing. We need to see both your eyes. Yeah. There's a I can't even explain it, but there's an isolation that we feel when you've robbed us of an opportunity of, you know, I think James said it, like, you know, it's very common to say the eyes are the window to the soul. So we felt disconnected from it. Now, if it was a shoot and you were shooting and they're doing a few different angles, we might have you from the front. We might have over your shoulder. We have the other person we're looking at. But this is your audition. So that right out of the gate was a little off-putting. So guys, be creative when you have scenes where you couldn't possibly be looking at the person and looking at the screen and have it make sense. And then think about ways that you can alter it. Was that pretty clear? Like how I would, like sitting in a car, the driver has to be forward, where every now and then you're glancing to the side. But the passenger, which way is the passenger? The passenger can be looking at the driver the whole time. And we can have this intense feeling of oncoming traffic, a side view mirror we don't want to address a lot, but the driver can address the rear view mirror, the side view mirror, and the person while staying in focus. So this is something that didn't come up at all today. But the fact is, I felt at the beginning that you were, you know, pretty casual in that seat at that interview. It made sense to me, but not for an audition. So you've got to find a way to modify it. And if it gave you comfort to be looking off at a person you were talking to, then again, turn your whole body and give us your face. And then your tape went out of focus for like several minutes. I mean, you don't know that when you're taping it, but if anybody was looking at it, or if you were taping on Zoom, I guess you wouldn't know until after you watched it. Yeah. Do it again. And out of focus tape will never work on an audition when it's for that much time. You know, sometimes tapes do fall out of focus, but if the performance is top notch, I say go with it. I, as a casting director, which I was for a period of time, casting Adrian Brody in his first lead role, I would say, you know, it's not going to deter me. I want the best performance. The times where you were supposed to cut him off. Now, listen, again, it's the second language. I get it. And again, I praise you for getting any of these words, but you were changing up the dialogue so much, even when you were reading it. What do you want to say?
I just want to say that I've done that in the last hour before the class, and I just thought I cannot do it perfectly, and I didn't have it all.
Well, let me say something
by
about
heart, and I just did everything so quick, and I couldn't review it to see if that was good enough or not. But I just thought it was better to do that than to do nothing.
Okay, so listen, for the purposes of a class, sure, you're not wasting anybody's time. We're all going to learn from your mistakes, and you're going to learn from your mistakes. But at the end of the day, part of what they're trying to do with this is give you access to teachers who can give you the best advice. And so whatever we say
Thank you very much for everything.
Yeah, so whatever we say to you, take it in. But at the end of the day, it's not a good practice for you as an actor to say, hey, let me say this. I'm a pretty good actor. I've been acting, you know, since I'm 18, and that's 20 years ago. And I'm teaching over almost 30 years. And I would say if I got this script and I had 1 hour before class to do it, you're a better actor than me. I mean, like, being a good actor is not going fast. It's knowing what you need. And no one on God's green earth would not need more than an hour to do this. So get into the habit of isolate. You got the script like before a week. There was longer than a week, this one. So get into the habit of, opening it up immediately and seeing what it offers, and like, oh shit, this is something I got to spend a lot of time with. Then I tell actors when they're working on like scenes in my class, even, I'm like, copy out the pages and put one next to your toilet, put one next to on your passenger seat in your car. And when you stop at a light, read it. When you're taking a poop, read it, and get yourself as close to the words as you can. And then the most important thing is understand what you're saying, because that ending, it's like you didn't really know what you were saying. You're issuing orders, you're making demands, you're holding him accountable. And if you don't know what the words are, and I'm not saying you don't know in your brain, but like, I talk to actors all the time. I'm like, I didn't know what you were talking about. You didn't know what you were talking about. And of course they know what they're talking about. And normally I say, you speak English, you read English, but it's about internalizing what you're saying. When you're saying things like, my concern isn't for the celebrities, and I don't know what you said, then you need to get in your body. You're like, my concern isn't for the celebrities. Who is your concern for? You say it in the next sentence. So you've got to break down the script. I get it. So it's almost no point in like continuing to talk about how you were not prepared for this. But let me say this, it's for everybody to look at. And it was a struggle to sit through the end of it. Like, I was like, oh, get the words out, get the words out. But if you can know just how, how sinister it is for us to experience, like watching one that would not know that you should know better. Now for class, again, it doesn't matter, but don't ever dash off an audition, with 1 hour to spare, because you think it's better for them to get it than not. And don't post footage of yourself that's bad, because it's not that it's better. Like, I have students that have been in shows and I've watched them and I've been like, why did you invite anybody to that show? I'm sorry, but if you committed to it, do it. You don't want to abandon the theater, the director, but don't invite industry people to that. So the most important thing, I think, is have a discerning eye of what is good and what isn't. Just because you're in something doesn't mean you have to invite people. Just because you did something doesn't mean you have to show people. But if you're learning, here you are on the learning curve. And what we know, and watch the tape again and watch it and be like, oh, what was I doing? It started off not bad. And like I said, it was you had a point of view. The other thing about it is that I do think that overall you knew what was happening. And you had the essence of who this woman was. She was like, no, you're kind of a fraud and I'm going to out you on that. Terrific. You knew that going in, but you totally lost it by the end. So I appreciate your take on it and your effort. But technically you need things like, need to know when to cut them off, because you're inspired to cut them off, because you know so much about what you're saying. You're driving this point that he can't get a word in. And that's got to be evident in what you do. Sean, are you critiquing or not?
Thank you very much for everything, Lauren. I think it's gonna help a lot, and I'm sorry if I did not do everything like perfectly technically. I just thought it was gonna be.
Don't apologize. We're here to teach you. But that it's good that you did it, because it's like, drive the point home on behalf of everyone else. Like, if you need to put the time in. It's not like some actors just think, or some potential wannabe actors just think, if I get the words out, it's good. I mean, I used to coach for competition, and people would just get up on stage and, for 1 minute, they would say all the words in their monologue. It's like, in front of industry. And it was like, that's not acting.
I intend to keep working on it, and maybe then show a better version of it in the next weeks.
That's all you can do. No one is, I'm going to say no one is born doing this. Some people are very young and they start really young and they grow into it, but there's a learning curve for absolutely everyone. Absolutely everyone.
Thank you very much for everything.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Ivy. Really appreciate it. Lauren, that was great. I had nothing more to add. Like you said it so much more eloquently than I ever would have. So
How many more tapes are there?
we've got two more,
Okay.
and then we're done. Guys, we've been here for over 3 hours, so we're gonna finish this off. George Gallagher has just arrived. George, can you do a quick 30-second spiel about yourself
Sure.
for people who don't know you?
Yeah.
I'm
Hey,
gonna go to the
George.
restroom for 30 seconds.
Yeah, go for it, Lauren.
All right. Yeah. Wow. This is tough. Hey, George. Hi, I'm George, acting coach extraordinaire, New York, Atlanta, sometimes LA. I teach the actor's instinct because I believe that's the most important thing. It's all about you being free in the moment, utilizing your instincts first and foremost. If we don't have that, we don't have anything. My teachers were Win Hammond, who was Denzel's teacher, and Harold Guskin, who taught more Academy Award winners and Tony Award winners than probably all the private coaches in history rolled into one. And he didn't teach the method. He didn't teach a lot of traditional things. It was really about just accepting that where you are in space, you're already alive and interesting. And if you can believe that and not start to act, then we're in the game and we can take it from there. Feel free to hit me up, theactorsinstinct.com, and let's take it away, Sean. And I consult for TMFA, and I'm a backstage expert, backstage.com.
He knows a lot, guys. You can trust him. Justin Elijah, are you here? I mean, I know you're here, but I can't see you on camera.
Yes, I am here. Just a moment.
Fabulous. Okay, Justin, we're gonna watch your scene. Here we go.
Can you talk about the vetting process that citizen journalism undergoes?
The vetting?
People can post more than locations. They can post observations.
That's right.
I'm asking if those posts are fact-checked.
This is one specific element of the website.
For instance, in a post today, a citizen journalist tells us Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood.
That's right.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was with his family in Cabo San Lucas last night.
People don't read this with the expectation that it's being true. Everyone.
Excuse me?
Everyone.
People don't have an expectation that what they're reading is true.
They read it for the immediacy.
But you're using the word journalism, which means that there is an expectation that what they're reading is true. But let me take it a step further. Let's pretend Jimmy Kimmel was intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood. That's not true, but we don't care. So let's pretend that it is, since that's what we're doing anyway. Why does that belong on our website?
Honestly, I think it's a shifting definition of what's public and private space.
There is, and we should care about that. But my question today is, why should we care about a talk show host drinking at a bar?
Don't you think that it's great that we're not putting people up on a pedestal and worshiping them anymore?
I don't think celebrities are one of the bigger problems facing us, but aren't we the ones building the pedestal? You've got a map that gives us their location.
The idea is that we're acknowledging that they're real people.
I wonder how many of us didn't already know that. But you're doing more than acknowledging them as real people. You're beating them up for it.
Aren't they protected by the piles of money they're surrounded by?
Okay, what's the line of demarcation? You make X amount of dollars a year, and now we treat you as a regular person who's basically had an electronic bracelet slapped on their ankle. What does X equal?
It would be silly to name an exact dollar amount.
You're paid $55,000 a year.
Well, that's private.
Sorry, but that's almost twice the national average for a family of 4. Do your piles of cash protect you from this interview in which I am intentionally stripping you of your dignity? Oh, and by the way, I've managed to do it without lying once. So I'm going to give you another chance to answer my question before I answer it myself. What's the value of an unsourced, unvetted story about a grown man drinking at a bar? I can't give you all the time in the world. It's entertainment. You see, my concern isn't for the celebrities, But even though as sure as we're sitting here, someone's gonna get hurt. My concern is for the rest of us that you're turning into a pack of prideless punks. That's news tonight for June 24th. I'm Sloan Sabbath filling in for Will McAvoy.
Okay, George, do you want to start with your feedback?
Sure. There's a caveat to this. At one point, I clicked something, Sean, and I was like seeing everyone and not hearing any audio, but it was only about 15 seconds. So
Okay.
I did see the beginning and most of the middle and all of the end. Cool. Justin, right? Hey, Justin, how are you, man?
Doing good.
Good to meet you. Nice job. I heard some feedback on myself there. Is it gone? Okay. So, look, I thought that was a really good rehearsal. I think you were finding some really good elements of the character, taking the other person in, really getting clear about what you're saying. I still feel like it's you have more work to do, at least in terms of Sorkin. I missed Alex's talk today. I'm sure he talked about rhythm and tempo because that's everything in Aaron Sorkin. Aaron will sit, and I know this firsthand. He will look at the script when you're in the room with him auditioning and will not look up at you 75% of the time to make sure you're saying his words the right way, which I think you did a pretty good job of. But I can still feel your attention on reaching for lines. I've given this note every time I've been here to at least one or two actors. Very hard. Whatever you can do if you're conducting an interview or, you know, in this format, to have those lines accessible to you, even if you have notes you're taking or a clipboard in the interview or whatever. You know, you have a finite amount of time to get your lines down and get them in your body so you're learning the role and not just the words, which I think you're certainly working on. But whatever you could do to, this isn't an acting critique as much as it is a preparation technique, to get you more familiar with it so that you can let it flow and let the rhythm take you where it takes you. Because I think you were doing some work and there were a lot of moments that were actually quite specific, but feeling your attention on that, it's the way he wrote the, style. My teacher Win Hammond used to say, style is a way of doing the material that makes it come across to an audience. Aaron Sorkin has an extremely famous, distinctive style. And again, I'm sure Alex spoke about this earlier. I wasn't here, but I'm certain of it. And you're on the path. If I'm being brutally tough on you, because I think you have a lot of potential, I would say you're about 75% of the way there. There's still a lot more work that you could be doing, and so I don't know how much time you took in your prep and whatnot, but also your point of view seemed pretty clear. But I guess the only question I would have for you is, in the beginning, when you say, can you talk about the vetting process, you already kind of already have a strong opinion about her and this whole organization. So, is there a way to or approach that, or did you have in mind without telegraphing kind of your point of view right from the beginning? Was that something you factored in? Did you leave yourself room to discover that? Were you certain that you were going to say that in this scene and that you were going to kind of rip her a new one, or did you come into it thinking, let's just talk about it and hear what she has to say with an open mind and let yourself to be discovered in the scene? That's a question I think for you. You could answer it if you want.
Well, I will say that in this particular one, when saying those lines, I was open to, whatever that answer was going to be, but then that next question of not even understanding what I meant, I was like, okay, well, yeah, it's kind of like in this point now, my mind, okay, you're an idiot. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward here and see where this goes. And kind of saw it I saw everything as kind of being like a TMZ version of Facebook. So I was like, okay, well, this isn't going to work out well at all.
Yeah, good, man. All right, look, it's a choice. I like that choice, and I think fully committing to that is always a good thing. Whenever you can discover something in a scene as opposed to kind of knowing what the outcome is going to be, both as a character and as the actor, it's going to be helpful. And so I would just encourage you to go a little bit even further with that throughout the material. I think I don't know how long you've been acting, but it seems like you have some skills. I would just encourage you to, before you get to your final take, see, this would be like a first take for me. And I would just try to get you further along in terms of so you can find the rhythm of that scene. And again, the rhythm, guys, this is for everybody. It comes from knowing what you mean and allowing what you mean to lead you to the next thought. If you have interruptions and things where you're putting the brakes on because you're reaching for lines, and at points I could tell like you were listening and then you sort of were kind of in and out of listening, that's a disconnect, and that affects the rhythm of the scene. De Niro talks about the rhythm of the scene all the time. Like, what's the rhythm here? How do we find the rhythm? Sometimes that can be more important than everything else. Sometimes an actor can literally just find the rhythm and suddenly they know what the scene's about, everything falls into place. Their instincts take over, the objective's there, they hear the music. Aaron's got music. And, you know, you've got more work to do, I think, on finding that, but you're on the right track. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Turn it over to Lauren or whoever else is going next. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, Justin. You know, I had this moment at the beginning of it where I was like, that was too easy. I'm like, do you know what just happened? You just told him people are going to murder and kidnap and kill these people. But you know, as you got going, I was like, I really liked what you did. I thought you had a very understated opinion, but you know, and I agree with everything that George is saying too, but because you're really close, you're really there, close to being there. It was a nice job. I'll tell you a little story. Years ago, one of my students, Britt Morgan, I've been working with her since she's 18 years old, and she had been on a bunch of series, and then we worked on a role for her. It was like a 5-episode arc for Weeds, yeah. And it turns out Michelle Trachtenberg, who just recently passed away at 39, got the role. And I remember watching it thinking to myself, she's not doing anything. And yet, had I not worked with Britt and saw all the beautiful nuances and how interesting she was, and at that time she wasn't quite a name yet, and so they gave it to the name. And I'm pretty sure that Michelle didn't have to audition for it. I don't know for a fact, but it was like she was doing nothing, which was still acceptable because her version of doing nothing was being natural, was just talking. It was like, it was any other day of the week. She was selling weed and whatever she was doing. And I thought to myself, and I've thought this many times, where at the end of the day, the goal, like your goal as an actor is to make it so natural, but it's almost like you can't do that until you're the series regular. There's something like fantastic that you have to offer on the audition. And it's not like she did anything wrong because that office kept calling her back and she's worked for them a bunch of times. It was just that the circumstances were as such that Michelle got the job. And Michelle's take on it, no one else would have noticed, like, well, she could have been better and more interesting. She just chose a non-nuanced performance, but she was real. She was in her body because she was an experienced actor. The more experienced you are, the more opportunity that you'll have for not phoning it in, because it takes a lot to be very simple. It really does. You know, I had a casting director tell one of the bunch of students that Britt Morgan, oh my God, we cast her in this role with, what's the guy who is in Shameless? William H. Macy. And he's like, oh, she just came in and she threw it away. Really? That was a 2.5-hour coaching session, if I remember correctly. So, you know, the best job is to not get caught acting and to appear as if no work went into it, the effortlessness of what you do as an actor. And this was kind of there. It was kind of effortless, but there was a few things that got missed. So I don't know, what worked for me was like you were opinionated. I could feel that you were internalizing what was going on. I could also see that, but then it was also, be careful again. I know this is a redundant thing. Everybody keeps saying this the whole session, that you added words in, like you said, my question today is, like you personalized it too much, but you still need to personalize it without personalizing it. I had a student come in a couple of years ago and he was like, I don't know what's wrong. I'm not booking anything. I used to book as a kid all the time. And now I'm an adult and I'm not booking anything. I saw his tape. It looked interesting. And then when I was reading with him, he was literally reformulating every single line. And I asked him, were you like, you know, trying to contribute something by changing. He was, yeah, I was making it my own. It's like, oh, that is not what's meant by making it your own. You can't rewrite the script. These people win Emmys for writing their scripts. They regard what they've written as valuable. It affects the timing. It affects the relationship to the material. So making it your own, like, and then you went, oh, and that, you know, listen, I could see you're a little sassy in there. I liked your character. It was understated. It was sort of like a big teddy bear that was kind of reprimanding this guy, and he wasn't going to get away with it. And I didn't feel like you missed anything in it other than just find more expression, personalize it more. And there were some places where I felt like George was saying, like, the flow of it wasn't like, there was moments where I felt like if you breathed, you would fall off your chair because, oh, this is not quite. And then you said it anyway. And it's usually not, that stuff's not detectable except to a keen eye, like a casting director or a teacher. We would just be like, it's not fluid about that. Listen, Sorkin isn't going to be here for the rest of our lives. We're going to be doing other material. That's not the point of doing this. There's always somebody that's going to raise their hand and say, I'd like to be the new Sorkin. So you've got to try to identify and make similarities. And sometimes they'll give you the prototypes for who this is like, and sometimes they won't. But just, I thought it was really good. I was like, surprisingly, moment to moment to moment, there was a lot of nice things. It just needs to be more dynamic. And those are things that when you work more on understanding how to drive a scene or put in the nuances, or you're courageous enough to make bolder choices, it will get better for you. But I mean, I don't know what it's doing for you now, but I think it was terrific. Understated, but nicely done.
Thank you.
Well done, Justin. Nice work. Okay, our last tape for the day, Casey. Okay, Casey, let's have a watch.
Can you talk about the vetting process the citizen journalism undergoes?
The vetting?
People can post more than locations. They can post observations.
That's right.
I'm asking if those posts are fact-checked.
This is one specific element of the site.
Okay, for instance, in a post today, a citizen journalist tells us that Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood.
That's right.
Jimmy Kimmel was with his family in Cabo San Lucas last night.
People don't read this with the expectation of it being true.
Excuse me?
Everyone...
People don't read this with the expectation that what they're reading is true.
But they read it for the immediacy.
But you're using the word journalism, which means that there is an expectation that what they're reading is true. But let me take it a step further. Let's pretend that it was true that Jimmy Kimmel was intoxicated last night at Soho House in West Hollywood. It's not true, but we don't care, and we aren't pretending, so we're gonna do that anyway. Why does that belong on our website?
Honestly, I think there's a shifting definition of what's public and private space.
Hello. There is, and we should care about that. But my question is, why should we care about a talk show host drinking at a bar?
Don't you think it's great that we're not putting people up on a pedestal and worshiping them anymore?
I don't think celebrities are one of the biggest problems facing us today, but aren't we the ones putting them up on a pedestal? We have a map that tracks their location.
The idea is that we're acknowledging that they're real people.
I wonder how many of us didn't already know that. But you're doing more than acknowledging, you're beating them up for it.
Aren't they protected by the piles of money they're surrounded by?
So what's the line of demarcation? You make over X amount of dollars a year, and we get to treat you as a regular person. But basically, you also have an ankle monitor strapped to your ankle. What does X equal?
It would be silly to name an exact dollar amount.
You're paid $55,000 a year.
Well, that's private.
Sorry. That's almost twice the national average for a family of 4. Do your piles of money protect you from this interview in which I am intentionally stripping you of your dignity? And, by the way, I've managed to do all of this without telling a lie once. So I'm going to give you another chance to answer my question before I answer it for you. What's the value of an unsourced, unvetted story about a grown man drinking at a bar? I can't give you all the time in the world. It is entertainment. My concern isn't for the celebrities, even though, sure, as we're sitting here, someone's going to get hurt. My concern is for the rest of us, who you are turning into a wild pack of prideless punks. That's Newsnight for June 24th. I'm Sloan Sabbath, filling in for Will McAvoy.
Okay, Lauren, you want to go first with this one?
Sure. Casey, that was terrific. I mean, like from start to finish, it was really, really good. It was organic. You set him up right out of the gate. It was like a real gotcha when you gave him the Jimmy information. It was strongly opinionated. And when you made that remark, you revealed his salary to the world. You were apologetic, but not really. I even like when you pulled your jacket down to make a point. Your body was so involved in every moment. It flowed, it was fluent, and you felt like this reporter gunning for a promotion. I really didn't actually write any notes. I feel like it's interesting because there's always one in here where it's like, whoa, nailed it. Now, that might not be the consensus, but I really thought you looked terrific and you told the story. And everything overlapped, like, okay, I said this, okay, it leads to that, and I'm waiting for more information. I'll take it in, I'll assess it, and then I'm still coming back with the same opinion. Yes, please speak.
If I may, I'm actually a big Sorkin fan and big newsroom fan. I might not look it, but I watched the whole thing start to finish as it was coming out. So I'm familiar with Sloan, and
that doesn't make it possible for you to do it. I mean, yeah. People will love a character and then they'll do some horrible impersonation of them or vapid, empty, blunt, just idea of what it looks like in a stick figure land. I mean, I thought for somebody who watched it, that was even more of an accomplishment because you've got them in your head, you've got their performance in your head and yeah, it was, I mean, terrific.
Thank you so much.
That's all I kind of got to say about that.
I really appreciate it.
George, what do you got?
So, well, I'll piggyback and agree with a lot of what Lauren said. I thought you did a great job.
Thank you.
And I agree. As soon as you came on camera, right away, I was like, cool, she's interesting. She looks great on film, very photogenic, looks the parts. Sometimes they say that's half the deal. So immediately I believe you as this person. What I mentioned before about the style, I thought you nailed that to the wall, like right away. You had that rhythm. I felt like a little bit like I was watching this girl, I don't know, one of these kind of hyperbolic personality. She's a conservative talk show host.
Candace Owens?
Candace Owens.
Oh yeah, I've been compared to her.
I was like, yeah, there's a little bit of like a thing with her, and anyway, and and that's kind of cool because she sounds like that's somebody I would believe to be a journalist. I mean, she's like a self-made journalist, but whatever. That's not the point of this class. but so yeah, no, there was really some great qualities that you had. It's definitely a credible audition, no doubt about it. I'm looking at this and wondering, it's a question of, I definitely think it's good enough in the mix for you to get a call back or to be test worthy. It all though depends on the batch of the actors that they're seeing. I did find, if I'm being brutally honest, and because you're so good, my attention was starting to wander a little bit in the middle. And I think it's because at that point, there was just sort of a similar tactics that you were applying, whether that was just what was happening and how you're responding in real time, or that was a strategy, it doesn't really matter. And I just find that sometimes, no matter how good an instinct or an impulse or a choice is, if you find the same thing playing on you for too long as an actor, it's almost always a great idea to just take a breath and go somewhere else and explore something different for a bit. I don't like the note, if you play, you came out kind of gunslinging right from the beginning, and some people might say, well, you didn't leave yourself anywhere to go. I don't think that's fair. I think if you're really freeing on your instincts, you can start out at Mach 10 and it'll be awesome and grab our attention and never let go. And it is a long scene and it's a huge scene. There might not be a single actor they're going to cut when they shoot this thing to reaction shots, and it's going to all hold our attention for 5 pages. In an audition, it's like really hard, like really, really tough. And so I'm wondering, you know, 20 years ago, and I'm going to put you up against, because I think you're that good. Like if Angela Bassett auditioned for something like this 25 years ago, would her audition in 5 pages, would she have held my attention the entire time? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But I think my only note and constructive criticism would be in that like sort of middle section there, and I don't have something specific for you other than to say really to explore something else, because I think you were so certain about, you know, what that other person represents in the scene to you, which was a great, clear, strong choice that you made. But I saw that right from the beginning, and it was really like, this is a combative interview. I've seen a lot of these go wrong, and it's very truthful. But for some reason, again, my attention started to wander in that section. And so I would just be curious to see if there were another take that you had done where there was a little bit of a different tactic there, or where maybe you weren't, you know, maybe you were being taken in, maybe you were starting to like re-examine what you felt, and then something happened that brought you right back into, no, they're no good and they're a hack and they shouldn't be doing this and they're overpaid and it is what it is. Look, this is my subjective experience. Again, I'm sure I would bet if we had a consensus of, 20 coaches on here, 90% of them would say I have no notes, and it's awesome. Like, it was definitely good enough to be in the mix for sure. But I'm putting you at the series regular, actors who were repped by CAA and William Morris and all those things, who went to Yale and Juilliard. I don't know where you trained, but
not there.
Yeah,
Tell you
but
that much.
And what are they going to do with this audition, and is it going to be different if somebody has that, in terms of how specific those choices are and how many different things kind of happen throughout the course of a 5-page scene? It's a massive scene. I don't think with the amount of time that you have, that I don't even know if that's doable in an audition. It might not be, but there might be someone out there who will do it, and they might be the one that edges you out. So I would just encourage you to explore that. All that being said, it's a huge win, and one of the better auditions I've seen in here, to be honest. I'm just kind of coming at you. If I were coaching you and prepping you to tape this, I'd be like, that's a really, really good take. Let's bookmark that. But I would have you do another one and try that and see which one we think is better and then we want to submit,
Yeah, I agree, because I was thinking the same thing, but I was like, I got to head to another audition. I was in the middle of something else, but I was like, I want to do this now while I feel the way I feel, because it was from one audition to another. So I was kind of sandwiching this, but I really appreciate it.
Again, I think it was really good, and something that definitely, if they right off the gate, if they like you, you look great, you got the style of Sorkin, you're alive, you're real, it's 5 pages, maybe you have a quick turnaround. I had something like this that was 4 or 5 scenes, or 3 or 4 scenes that was like 12 pages, and I had to do it in 12 or 24 hours or something. And it wasn't the perfect audition. Like, there were points where I was watching, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of checking out here, and this is a long speech, a lot of monologues. And, but they were excited with it and went pretty far. But, maybe somebody edged me out because they had that monologue and did a 5th take or whatever. So great work. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you all both.
I'm going to add to that. I'm going to piggyback also on what George said, when, like, I said it in different words, but at the beginning, I say it in different words, but half the directing is taken care of for television in the casting. That's just the truth. And that's the way that I train my actors, so that they can elevate and really, and I just literally directed a film with 4 of my students, 2 of which have been with me for like 15 years. I literally didn't have to direct anything once we were on set. It was like, I turned to my DP and I said, I need you to get that in close up. And that was because what this actor was doing was a blessed moment of experiencing what was happening in the story. One of them had written it because he's writing this deck, and I had the privilege of casting my students in it. So the truth is that I direct a lot of things with my students. I had a show running for 10 years in person. I didn't direct people in that show. It was an improv show, but I created the improv that they were doing, which was mind blowing. And it just ended on its 10-year anniversary in July. I'm too old to lug things back, in and out of the theater once a month. But the long and short of it is that what we're looking for is a level that when they cast you, they know you're showing up with the goods, and just a few well-placed notes. I mean, on television, you are the characters. I have one of my students, he was in this series called Colony, and he's in the one with Jeff Daniels. And he remembers like his father, who was the Josh something Holloway on Lost. The guy who played his father.
Josh Holloway.
Yeah, the guy who watched a lot of television. So
I watched Lost.
Yeah,
live.
the guy who played his father, one of the directors was giving him direction. He was a series regular kid on the show. He was his son. And he, the director was giving him direction, and the father, and Josh said to him, you don't have to listen to him. And he's like, yeah, but I want the feedback. I want to, I'm interested. I'm interested in growing. And that point was that, like, you're playing this character, and as you grow, they start writing for you. And I have so many students that have been on these series, and actually, like Rudy Pankow on Outer Banks, like they killed him off this season because should I say this on the recording? He wanted to leave, but he literally, people are obsessed with him. And he did his improv in my studio and turned that set into like an improv environment, and it changed people's lives. So, but I'm also in agreement with George, like halfway through it, it's like I didn't write anything down and I don't remember checking out. And usually I say, well, if I'm thinking about it, if I took my laundry out of the dryer, you're not doing everything you could be doing. I wasn't thinking about that, but what I recognized was I don't remember somewhere in the middle. So it didn't hurt because you brought me back. But know that your thread
there could be a sticking point.
Got to keep the thread going.
Yeah.
So
for sure. I love that, and I will play with it because I would maybe like to put this up on a reel or something. So this is a scene that I'm resonating with, I suppose.
Okay.
Well done.
Thank you.
That's all the actors' clips that we've got today, but I am going to show you the actual scene so you guys can see what it actually does look like and how they ended up shooting it and who got cast and all that sort of stuff. So here it is.
The map that tells you where celebrities have been sighted in New York or Los Angeles, and soon will be expanding to Vegas and South Beach. Anytime you want, you can scroll around and see, Jude Law was shopping for condoms at Duane Reade on 57th.
So people are out there and they can post a message to us and say, Kristen Bell and her kid are at the 4 p.m. showing of How to Train Your Dragon at the ArcLight.
And it goes right on our map instantly.
So that when Kristen Bell and her kid come out of the movies, there are a dozen sociopaths waiting for them.
I don't think that's likely.
Why not?
Well, it's the price of fame, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's a punishment for it. Celebrities have been stalked and celebrities have been murdered. What this app is best at is assisting in that, right?
I'm sorry you feel that way. AC Engage is citizen journalism.
Can you talk about the vetting process the citizen journalism undergoes?
The vetting?
People can post more than locations, they can post observations.
That's right.
I'm asking if those posts are fact-checked.
This is one specific element of the
For
site.
instance, in a post today, a citizen journalist tells us that Jimmy Kimmel was visibly intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood.
That's right.
Jimmy Kimmel was with his family in Cabo San Lucas last night.
People don't read this with the expectation of it being true. Everyone.
Excuse me?
Everyone.
People don't have an expectation that what they're reading is true.
They read it for the immediacy.
But you're using the word journalism, which means there is an expectation that what they're reading is true. But let me take it a step further. Let's pretend it was true, that Jimmy Kimmel was intoxicated last night at the Soho House in West Hollywood. It's not true, but we don't care, so let's pretend that it is, since that's what we're doing anyway. Why does that belong on our website?
Leave her on as long as she wants.
Honestly, I think there's a shifting definition of what's public and private space.
There is, and we should care about that. But my question is, why should we care about a talk show host drinking at a bar?
Don't you think it's great that we're not putting people up on a pedestal and worshiping them anymore?
I don't think celebrities are one of the bigger problems facing us, but aren't we the ones building the pedestal? We've got a map that gives us their location.
The idea is that we're acknowledging that they're real people.
I wonder how many of us didn't already know that, but you're doing more than acknowledging they're real people. You're beating them up for it.
Aren't they protected by the piles of money they're surrounded by?
Okay, what's the line of demarcation? You make over X dollars a year, and now you get to be treated by us as a regular person who's basically had an electronic bracelet slapped on their ankle. What does X equal?
It would be silly to name an exact dollar amount.
You're paid $55,000 a year.
Well, that's private.
Sorry, that's almost twice the national average for a family of 4. Do your piles of cash protect you from this interview in which I'm intentionally stripping you of your dignity? And by the way, I've managed to do it without lying once. So I'm going to give you another chance to answer my question before I answer it myself. What's the value of an unsourced, unvetted story about a grown man drinking at a bar? I can't give you all the time in the world. It's entertainment. My concern isn't for the celebrities, even though as sure as we're sitting here, someone's going to get hurt. My concern's for the rest of us, who you're turning into a wild pack of prideless punks.
70. Talk about predicting the future.
Yeah, right.
That was really good.
I just realized I was muted. So, yeah, that's what it looks like. And like I said at the very start, for those of you who've come in partway through the session today, that is based on a real interview that happened with Jimmy Kimmel himself.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'll show you. I can show you a portion of the actual interview just so you can see where it came from. So here they kind of get into it around here.
Am I allowed to say that word?
I don't know. I really don't know.
There'll be a time. I will predict that there will come a time when one of his clients is spotted. Some psychopath, as you say, does something, and somebody will sue this website and make a fortune for being in the chain and for being foreseeable for putting somebody out there and putting them at risk.
Well, we've been doing it for 4 years and it hasn't happened yet.
I'll venture this far to say that it will be only a matter of time before it does happen.
Celebrities have been stalked and celebrities have been murdered, and it does happen. And it happens a lot more than we even talk about or is reported in And this is a way to alert people that might be interested in a particular celebrity. And my problem is you post things that simply aren't true on the site, and you do no checking on your stories whatsoever. I'll give you an example. There was a story about me that popped up on my Google search. It said, Daily Gawker Stalker, when isn't Jimmy Kimmel visibly intoxicated? And there's a story about me being visibly intoxicated. I know it may be funny to you, but I didn't find it that amusing.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, the story that talks about me being drunk, I was coming home from my 1-year-old cousin's birthday party with my elderly aunt and uncle and my kids and my cousins, and I may have been loud, but I was far from intoxicated. And you put these things on there. I mean, I know you're an editor. What exactly are you editing from the website?
There's a whole other aspect of our website that doesn't have anything to do with the stalker map, but what the stalker map is citizen journalism. People don't read it with the expectation that every word of it will be gospel. Everyone who reads it knows that it isn't checked at all. What they read it for is the immediacy. And
I don't think that's necessarily true.
You get an unfiltered sort of the way that people perceive celebrities in real time that you don't get from any other media, and that's what I think is great about it. But you also get what is essentially slanderous statements or libelous statements
put on your website. I mean, for instance, today I noticed there was something about Kevin Costner. I went on to see what was there today, and it just said how fat Kevin Costner was, and then it had a picture of Jabba the Hutt next to him. Now, I know you sell advertising. I don't know why anybody would buy advertising on a website, but I don't know what the point of something like that is.
There's also a big contradiction. She said citizen journalism. She used the word journalism and then said everybody knows not everything's true. Most journalists at least try for the truth. It's a goal.
I mean, do you read Us Weekly and expect that everything in it is true, or Star? I think we actually probably...
I get calls from them fact-checking, and I don't from your website. That's absolutely true. Us Weekly at least has a legal department that vets things.
And our photographers at least are taking photographs of things that are happening, as opposed to, I mean, I just want you to think about your life and, weigh your options. And, I mean, because I would hate to see you arriving in hell and somebody sending a text message saying, guess who's here? You know what I'm saying?
Anyway, just thought I'd give you that. Yeah, you can see where it came.
No, he definitely took it from there. No question about it. Yeah.
She was like moronic, laughing at the. I don't particularly like him, but
Yeah, same here.
I think he's full of shit all the time, but back then it wasn't quite what it is now. And wow, interesting.
What was funny is that they even named that app the Gawker Stalker.
Yeah.
So it was a stalking app. Yeah, that was the name of it.
I just think people can report whatever they see any way that they want, and I believe in freedom of speech, but the censorship I think is pathetic. But at the end of the day, that is truly awful that he was not there and they just want to report whatever they want and they're saying it's journalism. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, my opinions mean nothing. Things they matter.
But that gives you guys the source material and even just like the idea as to where the writer got it from and how he dramatized it a little bit more for television. But you can even see in the original in the produced scene. The produced scene, like the full 5 pages or however long it is, only lasted 3 minutes. Like it is pacey. Yeah. So just things to keep in mind. That's all. Any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, last things before we finish up?
Just one thing. Oh, you guys go ahead. I'm sorry. I can talk to Sean all the time. No problem.
Go ahead.
I just, if I wanted to chop this up, because what I did was 2.5 minutes, and if I wanted to cut it down to a minute, what part do you think was the most pertinent part?
When I work with my clients as an agent, when we're looking for like a section to put into their clip libraries for sales and marketing, I'm looking for the highest high or the lowest low emotionally, for the like the part with the most amount of tension, because that's going to be the most grabbing part. Like, in order to sell an actor, we need to be able to grab our casting directors straight away. So I'm looking for a part that's like the highest high or the lowest low on an emotional level.
And I say attaching to that, it has to be the part you resonate with the most. It will be the most meaningful. It will make the biggest mark. It will spark the most amount.
I see.
I mean, you know, you don't have to pretend to like love something or be resonating with something that doesn't resonate with you. It just has to be your choices. And you have to think, you know, long and hard about that. And what does that mean to you? So what's personal to you is not personal to somebody else. And you connecting to the personal part for you will make that personal for someone else.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's another good reason why like these sessions are really valuable, because everyone's doing the same scene, but you can see everyone's interpretation, their essences, their personalities come through. As much as there's commonalities between everyone, there's also a lot of differences, and that's going off of what Lauren's saying. That's really what makes you stand apart from everyone else, is how much you really live in your stuff in the interpretation and the delivery.
It's a hard concept for newer actors to get, because you watch something and you see it materialize in front of you. It's like, just stay away from trying to do it like somebody else is doing it. But then that comes with a lot of technique with figuring out how you can insert your personal connection to it. And there's processes that I do that no one else does, and they work 100% of the time. And I do them over and over and over again with people who have series, who are working on the episodes of the series. But again, you know, the mark of a good actor is not getting it quick. It's knowing what you need. And, you know, no one, the greatest actors ever, they can't just pick up a script and erect it as if it's the final phase. It's always things it has to go through to get to the final, to the punchline.
Yeah, as long as you can, what I've heard a number of acting coaches and casting directors say, leave your stink on it. You know, what's your flavor? You know, like I've even heard a casting director say, like, piss on it. Like, actually, like, piss on it. Like, what is your piss? Like, leave your mark on that scene.
Yeah.
As long as you can, like, honestly say you've left your version of it. You've left it on the floor. You know, was it fun? Was it easy? Was it you? You're good. You know.
I like that.
It might not be for that part, but they'll remember you for the next one. The goal is to be memorable in a good way. You know, the only people that casting directors remember in their sessions are the ones who are really bad and the ones who are really good. And if you're in between, it's like, so you'll get another chance, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's no different than doing the live audition. It's your experience is different, and it would be nice to meet people in person and make contact and be connected to them. But it's still, we still suffer the same things. Like, are we good enough? Did I make it make sense? And can I convince you that I'm interesting? And yeah, I could keep talking forever, but I'm going to go now.
Guys, I just want to say thank you to all of you, like Lauren, to you guys who are here, like you guys lasted the whole session. Like this is a long session, so thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All
It's
my
great.
classes are 4 hours long, so
You've got the endurance for it, Lauren. Take care, everyone. Have a good day. Enjoy your weekend.
You
Thanks,
too.
guys.
See ya.
Thanks again.
Wait.